Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to attend CII Manufacturing Innovation Conclave. Please note that we'll be starting the conclave at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Ajay, please pass on the rights to me.
Just make sure. Yeah, I'm inside with us.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay.
Hi, morning, everyone. Kishore here.
Morning, Mr. Shore. This is Rajiv from CII.
Yeah, hi, Rajiv.
Dr. Bhatnagar, good morning. This is Rajiv from CII.
Good morning, Rajiv ji. Am I audible?
Welcome to the conference, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So we also have Mr. Kishore Jayaraman with us, and our guest of honor, Mr. Arun Kumar Jha, who has also joined.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning. This is Kishore here.
Yeah, hi Kishore ji.
Hi. And hello, Mr. Jha. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Garg. This is Rajiv from CII.
Good morning. Very good morning.
So we'll be starting the conference very shortly, sir.
All right.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
On behalf of CII, it is my privilege to welcome you all at the inaugural session of CII Manufacturing Innovation Conclave. The theme of this conference is Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning, New Way of Modern Digitization. I would like to introduce our eminent panelists of the inaugural session. We have amidst us Mr. Arun Kumar Jha, Director General, National Productivity Council, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Mr. Kishore Jayaraman, Conference Chairman and President, India and South Asia, Rolls-Royce. Mr. Prateek Garg, Chairman, CII Regional Committee, Northern Region on Artificial Intelligence and Managing Director, Progressive Infotech. Dr. Rishi Bhatnagar, President, Aries Communication India. Mr. Raghu Ayaswamy, Senior Vice President and Global Head, IoT, Tata Consultancy Limited. Mr. Rajiv Singh, Partner and Automotive Leader, Deloitte India. We are really honored to have with us Mr. Arun Kumar Jha, Director General, National Productivity Council, Department for Promotion and Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, as our guest of honor. Thank you, sir, for your virtual presence and gracing the occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, this conclave will deliberate on the potential of artificial intelligence and machine learning, which includes IoT, IP, robotics, automation, and digitization, which are revolutionizing the way businesses are running today and to transform our country through innovation and manufacturing sector. I am also delighted to share with you all that 180 delegates have joined the conference today through CII Hive platform. With these words, may I now request the conference chairman, Mr. Kishore Jayaraman, to deliver his opening remarks. Over to Mr. Jayaraman.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rajiv. It's a pleasure and a great privilege for me to be here joining you all in this 11th conference on manufacturing innovation conclave organized by CII and having the privilege of really very esteemed partners and panelists here with me. Thank you, Mr. Arun Kumar Jha. It's a privilege to be here with you, sir. And thanks to Raghu, a friend from the industry and a great mentor and a coach for me as I learn things from them in terms of IoT, in terms of digitization. And it's a pleasure to be here with you, Raghu. Mr. Garg, Dr. Bhatnagar, and it's a privilege to be here with you all. Rajiv, needless to say, me and Rajiv have been on this panel for quite some time now. And Rajiv, pleasure to be here with you again. So thank you very much to all the esteemed panelists. Good morning to you all. And thanks to the audience. If I heard Rajiv correctly, we have about 170 people in the delegation. So it's a privilege to be here with you all. Now, at the end of the day, these conferences matter a lot to us because we not only come in with our own fixed knowledge and our opinions, but we go out with an enhancement of this knowledge and opinions as will be applicable to our particular sectors, to our particular operations. And when I look at it for myself, I say that, the future is here today. I tell people that I started looking at artificial intelligence about 35 years back when I was doing my master's. And Lisp was a programming language, and it was a concept. It was a very futuristic concept. And in those days, we used to look and read books, and Alvin Toffler had this book on cyber, space. And we used to think about it and said, how is it possible you're going to have computing power, leave alone computers? And so then we turn around, Alan Turing comes along, and then, computing power comes in. And then we all say that, oh, this is all possible, but artificial intelligence, oh, it's never going to happen. Then you say that, okay, Lisp programming. I thought Lisp would be, extinct as fast as it came in. But then I'm today here, 35 years in the industry, having gone through many trials and tribulations. And I noticed that artificial intelligence and machine learning are going to be the way of our lives. It is not a theme. It is not a concept. It is not a futuristic, sort of a visionary statement. It is here today, and it is in front of us. And why is that? Primarily, when we looked at things, it was always about how do you get data? And if you have data, how do you use the data? So in order to get the data, you need to have a place to store the data. So you need to have more and more storage capacity. But once you have the storage capacity and you have the data, you need to have the intelligence in order to be able to parse the data and be able to come up with solutions with the data that is there. So it is about the computing capabilities needed in order to parse the data. So computing capabilities and storage capacity has led us into this whole new digital world. And when we go into this digital world, as Rolls-Royce, we are in the middle of it. and we find our way through it. We have petabytes of data in our manufacturing processes, and on a daily basis, we have to worry about how do we use this data. And as we do this, it is also important to learn that with this computing capabilities, there is the ability for us to optimize things, for us to make our operations more efficient, for us to make things so that our customers are going to be, at the end of the day, beneficiaries of agility, ability to change very quickly, of innovativeness, the ability to think about what next. And last but not the least, our basics. We believe in the SQCDP. And when we look at the SQCDP, it's about safety first. We look at the quality, we look at the cost, we look at the delivery, and we look at the people. And when you want to look at SQCDP, the concept never changed. It's the same concept today. But the way we analyze the concept, the way we look into this concept and sort of create efficiencies and drive productivities is very different. And that's what we want to continue to do and continue to evolve. And therein, with the computing capabilities, we are asking machines to learn for us. We are asking machines to communicate for us. We are asking machines to help us augment our natural ability to solve problems. And I think it's a wonderful new world. And you cannot describe this world as, we are here today and we're going to be here tomorrow. It's going to be a journey. And we've been on this journey for a few years now. But every year that goes by, the enhancement to the platforms, the processes that comes about is only going to take us to that next level. So I can't say enough about how much it is very important that AI and ML and techniques are all integrated into the manufacturing processes so that India can become the next powerhouse for manufacturing for the globe. And it is not going to happen because we change for the sake of change. So each of us have to look at our own processes, our own production, and understand what matters, understand what will make us more relevant, understand what will differentiate us from everybody else. And I'm hoping that as we go through these conferences, that's what we'll focus on, and look at these tools and techniques and figure out how it's going to enhance us in what we want to deliver to our customers. And I won't take too much of time, but it's like, once again, like I said, it's a real pleasure and a privilege to be here with you all. And I look forward to learning as we go forward. Without much further ado, I'll hand it back over to Rajiv, the host. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your welcome remarks. May I now request Mr. Rajiv Singh for his theme introduction. Over to Mr. Rajiv Singh.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Jairam and Rajiv. And a warm welcome to all the panel members here, and a very good morning to all the members who have joined us over the net as well. Really very, very glad, and thanks a lot to CII to have us for the last so many years as a knowledge partner. So really, really glad to be here. Just to quickly add on and continue with what we heard from Jairam. And before I get into it, I think artificial intelligence, machine learning can be either quite simple or it can be quite complicated. And I'll start with an anecdote actually that my son taught me. And my son is, of course, a school-going kid, and he happened to be going through his computer science book because it happens to be a chapter or a subject for him in his class 7, class 8. And he was going through a chapter which was on AI ML. So he asked me, Daddy, what is this AI ML? And I can tell you I really struggled because I had to explain it to a kid who was in class 7, what is AI ML? And I tried my best. But to my surprise, my kid came back to me next day and he said, what is AI ML? And I'm going to narrate what did he narrate to me as AI ML, okay? He said, we were all watching a movie which was on Netflix. And he said, this Netflix, when you click a movie, it tells you that what are the other movies you like or you are likely to kind of like. And it does it not only for us, it does it for all the people who have Netflix, who log into Netflix, who have a Netflix ID and so on and so forth. So I don't think so that they have so many people, because if billions of people are watching Netflix, they may not have so many people who is doing this for every customer. So definitely they have some kind of an artificial intelligence, which is actually tracking what are the movies that you're seeing. And they are able to predict, depending on what movies you see, what movies you're likely to see in future or likely to like in future. And they keep changing, because today I open this and it shows me a set of movies, but after 1 week I open it, it shows me a next set of movies, which means that it's also doing some kind of a machine learning on it to say, we predicted 100 movies or 50 movies, but these guys did not watch those 50 movies. They watched something else. So maybe that my algorithm is not right, and I need to keep correcting my algorithm. So I think that the important thing is that in manufacturing domain, and why I narrated that story is that because all of us who come from a strong manufacturing background, the moment you go to a shop floor, you talk to a supervisor, you talk to a labor or whatever the workers on the shop floor, the shift engineers, and you tell them artificial intelligence, machine learning, either we can fear them off, or we can find a way of how do we ensure that we augment the knowledge that they already have with something over and above that. And Jer, I'm sorry, I'm picking up the same word because I like that word augment that you said. So how do I augment what the human knowledge is already there with artificial intelligence and machine learning? I think that is what is going to be the very key as we try and ensure that more and more organizations embrace and adopt artificial intelligence and machine learning in manufacturing and in supply chain. We have been a little privileged. We have been working with a lot of folks, both in manufacturing as well as supply chain, and even in at the front end with the sales and marketing organizations. In terms of seeing how do you ensure that you drive higher efficiencies, how do you ensure you drive better customer experiences, how do you ensure you drive lower costs and better quality through artificial intelligence and machine learning, be it procurement, be it manufacturing, and so on and so forth. For example, we were working with one of the players which was buying a commodity from the market. And to buy that commodity, there was an army of whatever, 10, 15, 20 people who used to track about 100 odd parameters or 120 parameters in the market across the globe. And they track it on a daily basis, they track it on a weekly basis, and then they have their own Excel files, which they use to say, okay, what is the spot price likely to be from 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, and so on. But rather than trying to do all that through human interventions, we said, okay, why don't we build an artificial intelligence algorithm out here, which will try and do this, but as we try and do this, we make it more real time. We ensure that instead of 120, if they are missing another 50 odd parameters that they wanted to do, but because of the limitation of the human manpower or whatever the computing power, we are not doing it, try and also further enhance it. And then use that to start predicting the commodity prices. And as you predict the commodity prices, if you find that your algorithm is only 90% accurate or 92% accurate, you put another layer of machine learning over it, which says that, okay, what do I need to do so that every time my prediction level goes up by a little notch every time. And I think that is the journey towards perfection that we have always been all engaged into. And that is where I think the topic of artificial intelligence, machine learning comes in really as the right fix there. So what we are planning to do today is we will have 2 sessions. We have a lot of, we have quite a few eminent speakers who are joining the 2 sessions. The first session that we are going to have after this inaugural session is on manufacturing, which Sridhar Kamath is going to moderate, and we have about 4 or 5 eminent speakers in that particular panel. They are going to discuss some use cases. They are going to discuss some actual applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning from a manufacturing perspective, be it discrete, be it process industries, and so on. And the second panel after that we have is on supply chain. And there Ishwar is going to be the moderator, and then we are once again having about 4 or 5, I think, eminent speakers from the industry who are going to be talking about how are they leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning from a supply chain perspective. So those are the 2 sessions that we have planned today. I would request folks to join that session depending on your interest, whether it is manufacturing or supply chain. Some of you who would like to hear the entire story around supply chain and manufacturing would urge you to be there for the entire duration. So with that, once again, a warm welcome to all of you, and looking forward to exciting discussion. Rajiv, let me hand it over back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Rajiv. for your 3-minute introduction. May I now request Mr. Ayaswamy for his address, please.
Thank
Mr.
you, Rajiv.
Ayaswamy.
Yeah, thank you, Rajiv. Good morning, Kishore, Conference Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Arun Kumar Jha and fellow panelists in this session. Good morning to all the audience who have joined this CII event. I'm Raghu Ayaswamy, joining from TCS. It's a great pleasure to join this, especially this event focusing on artificial intelligence and machine learning and a new way of modern digitization for manufacturing. As Rajiv put it very nicely, today artificial intelligence and machine learning has become a very integral part of our day-to-day activities, even without us noticing it, actually. Typically, we tend to hold artificial intelligence and machine learning as some advanced topics of PhD level research, and general feeling is it is far to get adopted into a practical problems, and that too in manufacturing, dealing with process, product, and assets. How can it essentially be used effectively in this kind of environment? Given that that technology looks very light and it is hard to absorb some of the algorithms and the skills around adoption of AI and ML. I want to comfort all of you in this conference that AI and ML is actually a day-to-day adoption today across many industries. Rajiv gave some very excellent examples of how it is being used in Netflix insights that they are able to provide. We also see very, very simple things have very fantastic amount of AI ML adopted. For example, there are many security cameras which you can get for a few thousand rupees, which you can fix it in your front of your home. And it's not taking the picture or recording the video all the time 7/24 hours. When somebody crosses through the door and there is a movement of a person, it kind of has the intelligence to detect, yes, there is a person now moving into this. And based on that moment through infrared, it alerts the recording within the chip, and it records for 10 seconds the face and the person who is entering it, and then it pushes to the cloud. And you, even if you are not at home, you are far away, thousands of miles away, even if you are in the US or anywhere, you can actually get an alert in your phone, and you can open up the phone and look at, oh, somebody else have come at the door of my house. And you can really watch on a whole day whoever has come. You don't have to watch a 24 hours video to know what kind of people have come, which is that traditional old conservative way of image processing. Now with this chip, which is there in that small camera, is AI ML enabled. So that's the use you have. You have right in front of your home for a few thousand rupees an AI ML enabled algorithm. That's why you are able to see only during the 10 seconds if somebody is showing at the door, you are able to actually detect it, and you are able to get it in the cloud, and it's kind of made available to the consumer at the point of where he really needs it. You can take multiple examples across many industries, whether it is medical image processing to retailers in the where there is something called, they are talking about garbage cams, where there are cameras that keep looking at the shelf of a retailer, and the more and more garbage is getting consumed and the shelf is getting empty, it will alert the warehouse people to bring additional stock and refill the shelves. Like that, you can take many types of examples, and I will come to manufacturing in a short while. So across industries, AI ML is getting adopted. It is a day-to-day technology. It can be purchased, it can be implemented from a small scale, medium enterprise to big scale, large enterprises. Today, the cost of cameras, the cost of sensors that are required, the ability for us to run some of these complex algorithms in compute power, even in our phones, or you can even take laptops and any other desktop computers have enough power to process that. And all of that are allowing us to actually adopt this technology very fast and very affordable way for our day-to-day usage. So the first and foremost, I really want to give a message that AI/ML is not something we should be distanced from. Rather, we should embrace with a lot of interest, and it is affordable and it can be implemented across many use cases, including manufacturing. Now, specifically coming into manufacturing, I think one of the biggest challenges in manufacturing, if you look at, is the opportunity for us to reduce wastage, reduce unproductive time, downtimes in the shop floor and the manufacturing plant and process plant, and also improve the efficiency. Like, are we really getting the enough of capacity output from the various equipment, various processes that we are operating today? Second major challenge is in supply chain, especially if you look at the goods that have to be transported from the point of production to the point of consumption, and especially if those goods are perishable, for example, dairy products, vegetables, and fish and meat products. All of that actually have perishable, limited shelf life. And if we are not efficient, if we are not really having the intelligence of where the demand is there and how will I deliver the demand from the production point without any wastage, without any disruption in the process, we will lose a lot. In fact, they say that in India, we lose around 30% of our food production, vegetable production, because we just cannot take that from the point of produce to the place where we can deliver to the consumption point on time in the right quality. So that is another major challenge, supply chain. Now, this entire supply chain problem and the entire manufacturing, where I said it is efficiency and reduction of wastage, can be holistically and very efficiently addressed through artificial intelligence and ML. And every industry should really ask this question, what they need to do, how they can really adopt it, and what solutions exist in the market, and how they can really bring that to their shops, bring that to their supply chain. I will give a few examples to illustrate where this could be used. But as I said, AI/ML is very broadly used, and you can customize it to any need you want today. It just needs the use case and our imagination to build an AI/ML solution for a problem. But typically it is in the manufacturing setting, one of the major problem for manufacturer is all downtime of machinery. If the machinery is down in an unexpected manner, your production line stops for 2 shifts, 3 shifts, there is a production loss. Your ability to deliver and your promise to the customers is also impacted. So it has a host of downstream impacts for the manufacturer. Today, by using AI/ML solutions, many industries are adopting what they call as connected assets. They can get sensor data from many of these equipment, be it a compressor, be it electric motor, be it a conveyor belt, be it anything, and they are able to actually predict. For example, from the data I have and the AI/ML algorithms that you can develop, you can really predict maybe in two weeks of time, there could be a potential damage or potential failure in this equipment. So I take proactive action. So I can order a spare parts ready. I'm keeping that in the store. The moment there is a failure, I can immediately fix it and get myself up running within a couple of hours. Or I can even take a planned shutdown and make those changes as is required. It's a huge thing where we are really optimizing our equipment machinery through AI/ML. We call that as digital twin-based solutions. One of the solutions we worked in TCS with a utility company, and many manufacturing industries have captive power plants, or you are drawing power from various generating stations. And in the utilities, the real goal for them is to optimize the efficiency and their ability for them to actually manage very good power output from the boiler, at the same time optimize the emissions. But both are actually contradicting goals. When you are an operator of a boiler, 800 megawatt boiler, if you try to optimize for efficient emissions, the heat rate will go for a toss. If you are actually optimizing for heat rate, emission may go out of bounds. So we used AI/ML for this power plant utility company. We draw all the data from SCADA system and DCS system, built an AI/ML algorithm, and we were able to really provide them a very nice view of how they can operate it, both from the hit rate perspective as well as from the emission perspective. And it is now being adopted across 20 to 30 power plants that our utility companies, this utility company is operating across the world. Similarly, in manufacturing, we are working with a large cement manufacturer. And the problem for them is they have a number of facilities on which they are producing, and the number of places where it is getting consumed at the dealership level and retailers level. How do we really transport, because depending upon the available capacity versus available demand, in a most optimized manner, so that a truck that is getting loaded and being delivered to a particular destination is not inefficiently loaded, it is not partially loaded, it is full capacity, it is loaded. At the same time, the route it is taking is fully optimized, so that we can really get the best mileage, and the transportation cost can be optimized. A very complex problem. If you look at the network has around 60 production points and more than 400, 500 delivery points. How do we really optimize? An AI/ML algorithm engine runs on behind that to provide the best solutions for them. We also work, the manufacturing companies can really look at AI/ML to optimize. Another major important area I would like to highlight is their energy and sustainability. A lot of time energy is not, utilization is not optimized, so the carbon dioxide emissions are very high. But by putting AI/ML techniques and optimization techniques, they can really bring down the cost of energy. At the same time, also it helps them for their sustainability goals. We are working with major industries across food and beverage manufacturer to discrete manufacturing, process manufacturing, to really put energy monitoring, smart meters and smart sensors, to get the energy data to the cloud, and wherein there are a lot of optimization algorithms are running. For example, we work with Tata Steel to optimize, because Tata Steel is a big energy guzzler for steel making, and a lot of cost is sunk on energy. So how do they really optimize the energy consumption? And we adopted this solution even for within TCS. We have around 130 to 150 buildings in India, consume around 440 million units of power in a year, when we have all our teams are operating from the office. This year, last year, maybe a little less. But in a typical year, we consume around close to around 500 million units of power. Huge. And we could achieve around 15% consumption reduction in energy consumption using AI and ML technique, which is a solution which we used in TCS, but it can be used in any other setting, in the factory, in an industry, in process plant, chemical plant, everywhere. So I think my summary today is AI/ML is not a far-fetched technology, and we need not distance ourselves. We should actually embrace it. It is affordable. It is being actually administered in very normal devices that we use, from smartphones to intelligent cameras. It can be applied in manufacturing for wastage reduction, optimizing process efficiency, as well as for energy and sustainability and supply chain above all. There are a number of solutions, number of ways it can be addressed. My colleague from TCS who runs the Industry 4.0 practice, Harish Mehra, will be talking in the afternoon in detail about some of the solutions. I'm very happy to be part of this CII session on a most important topic when the country is heading on this Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar initiative. And this topic is very relevant. I'm sure every one of us will benefit from this today's session. Thank you very much, and over to you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Mr. Ayaswamy, for your address and sharing your valuable views with the audience. May I now invite Mr. Prateek Garg for his address, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. I hope I'm audible. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So my dear esteemed panelist, it's really a great pleasure to be here on this very, very important CII conference. Mr. Jayaraman and Mr. Rajiv Singh, a great pleasure to meet you again virtually this time. And as a matter of declaration, let me say that I have very little connect on the manufacturing side. So in that sense, I am not a manufacturing expert. I come from the digital world, so anything digital excites me. And as an entrepreneur, having spent over 3 decades in the industry, I can tell you this, that these are most exciting times in the digital world, and anything and everything around us is digital. And as rightly pointed out by Mr. Regu Ayaswamy, that we at times are not even aware that AI ML is at work. So having said that, the country, I think, is at an inflection point, and if we really have to be Atmanirbhar as well as achieve the coveted goal of $5 trillion economy, manufacturing has to be at the forefront of this. And India, unlike any other country in the world, has a twin advantage: one, a very robust and a diverse manufacturing sector with a very, very strong digital industry, with the likes of TCS, and the other global SIs who bring so much experience, global experience to the table that we as a country can leverage it and accelerate the adoption of digital. Now, when we say digital, it besides other technologies like cloud, IoT, it also extrapolates to AI, ML, and in many ways is the topic of today, as well as is a very hot topic from a Industry 4.0 perspective. So for manufacturing to be agile, adaptive, and efficient, digital technology adoption is the key. And to today, to grow your business as well as to sustain, I don't think there are any choices. And the pandemic, in many ways, has accelerated the digital adoption in the world, and so has it in India. So it's only possible for the firms to be knowledgeable, innovative, and well managed only if they have access to skills as well as capital, without doubt. But these assets provide the absorptive capacity needed for successful firms to embrace new knowledge, technology, and innovative practices. Innovation, in many ways, is synonymous with digital. So when you talk innovation, you actually are talking about making, adopting digital in all facets of your business. So today, as has been pointed out by the previous panelists, all industries, all segments, all functions are quite intertwined with the digital technologies, and each industry is at a different stage of adoption and acceleration as far as AI ML is concerned. So it's no more a good to have technology. It is a must have. And as we are progressing, the innovation on AI ML is also progressing very rapidly, and therefore the speed of adoption will only accelerate from here. So the technology industry in India is in an exciting phase, as we know, unlike any other country. For more than 2 decades, the technology services industry, led by the leading lights like TCS, has been in the forefront of driving this. But now, government has jumped into this equation with a Digital India initiative, and that has really caught up in the last 6 quarters to 8 quarters. If you see, the number of unicorns that the country has delivered is phenomenal. This year, we are seeing almost two unicorns a month in terms of the way the country's digital innovation is progressing. Startup India has really caught on. The government has not been left behind. The government at its level has used AI ML, is using AI ML in a very decisive way across all functions of governance. And we are seeing that come true. The tax evasion, the tax compliances, all of that, the government is using the digital technologies. In the recent years, we've seen, digital assistants coming to fore. Banks are using it very effectively. Cab aggregators, targeted advertisements with the, on the platforms like Amazon, like Google. You see that you're always, and this was mentioned as an example as well. Similarly, the government bodies are also increasing AI-powered applications such as image and speech recognition, robotics to bolster, define, and the equipment and techniques. Hence, with increasing use of AI, the market for AI is only expected to grow much faster than the rest of the industry or rest of the technology. So traditionally, manufacturing has always relied on deterministic processes. But as AI becomes prevalent, it is required to shift this and rely partly on probability. And that, I think, that shift is going to be very challenging. A further benefit of AI to the manufacturing industry is increased sustainability, as it enables better utilization of resources, improve efficiency, as well as customer experience. The use of AI within manufacturing goes beyond computer vision, and we're now seeing technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, becoming very prevalent, especially in being used. Some of the use cases that we've seen are around maintenance or installation, remote support. A lot of this is now mainstream. And AI, therefore, is creating more opportunities and is no more perceived as a threat. It is only going to accelerate and help grow our businesses, our economy faster. Understanding the importance of emerging technologies in the next phase of digital transformation, CII has always been at the forefront of it. And there is a special focus on artificial intelligence within CII and through its sectoral committees. And I, for one, head the North Region CII committee for the last 2 years, where the focus is to help promote digital technologies by engaging concerned stakeholders. As was pointed out earlier, so AI is no more, AI ML is no more, prevalent only for large industries and large companies. AI ML is now mainstream, and even small and medium-sized businesses can start leveraging it very effectively and grow and sustain their businesses. So to conclude, I would think that AI is going to not only disrupt processes, but will also disrupt our mindsets and become a very key part of Industry 4.0. With those words, I'd like to thank all of you and thank the audience and as well as wish them a great conference for the rest of the day. Thank you very much, and over to you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Mr. Garg, for your address and sharing your perspective. May I now request Dr. Rishi Bhatnagar for his address, please. Over to Mr. Bhatnagar.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this inaugural session for such an important and relevant topic for today's world. My name is Dr. Rishi Mohan Bhatnagar, and I am the president for a company called Aries Communication. I just want to give a brief about Aries because we are a two-decade-old Silicon Valley company working only on Internet of Things. 2 decades back, somebody thought that there will be Internet of Things and we will be providing connectivity to machines. We created a complete IoT platform. And today on our platform, we have 15 million devices connected. Out of this 15 million, many of them are many of them, more than millions, are the manufacturing plants, machines, which are providing us data. We get approximately 2.6 billion messages every day from these machines. And we do all the AI, ML, and give results and try to do whatever the machine, what the company requires. So while people are thinking we are already implementing the AI ML and we have already 15 million devices connected on our platform and 60 plus IPs of our own on machine to machine communication. That's the background of our organization. I started this organization in India in 2016. And because of our experience, while my previous panelists and chair has already spoken about the importance of AI ML and how this is being used, how this is can be used, and cost of your computation, everything has reduced. So there's more implementation. I like to tell you, in 2016, when I started in India and started going to different manufacturing companies and trying to tell them about Industry 4.0, and honestly, Government of India came out with Samarth Bharat and many of the things which will be required, especially for the MSME sectors. We did approximately 100 pilots with different manufacturing plants. And with many of those plants, all the pilots were very successful, but none of them, and I'm using the word none of them, got into a large scale implementation except for one, which was a one factory. And if you realize, even the large organizations, large manufacturing plants in India, they'll have a one showcase factory to show them that, yes, they have implemented automation, robotics, AI, ML, and that's a state of the art factory. But the large implementation across the organization, and there are multiple factories across India, they have not implemented all. And take it any example, and that will be true for any. The pandemic became I'll say, good for a company like us, because in comparison to a manufacturing company, the SIs or the service industry continued working. For an IT services company or a company like ours, the productivity didn't lose. People started working from home. We all had laptops. We all had internet connectivity. And because things were on cloud, the productivity loss was zero. Okay, so all the IT services company, all the telecom companies, all the product companies, everybody continued working and their productivity loss were minimal. Whereas the production company, the manufacturing plants got stopped. Their productivity became zero. And that was a time when people realized that while they were trying to get into the return on investments on implementation of AI, ML, robotics, IoT in their organization, they have now gone to a level where they're no productivity and there is no revenue. And in such a scenario, they all started talking about how they can have remote processing, how their machines could be operated, how their people can be managed, and how they can have digitalization and utilization of AI and ML. You will be surprised that one company which had implemented at one factory is now implementing across their factories. And the 99 of those pilots which didn't agree to take it forward are now talking to us and trying to see how they can grow. The message is that while the pandemic has really shown the importance of digitalization, and if you really want to continue your business, you can't escape from digitalization. And I am a live example of, Aries Communications started with 100 pilots, could not grow even a single pilot into a live project. Now we are talking to all those 100 and they all are interested in talking to me at how they can implement. And none of them, and I'm using the word none of them, is asking return on investment, because they all understand that if they won't do it, there's no future for them, because pandemic happened after 100 years, but we don't know for how long. But how long can they continue having no production and having no digitalization? While this was a very encouraging thing for company like us, and I'm sure many of the manufacturing, the SIs and the implementers of IoT solutions or digital solutions in large manufacturing plants must be, implementing at a larger scale. I really want to share two more things. First, Industry 4.0 is a term used in Germany or in the Western world. Okay. How relevant it will be for an MSME in India? That's a question mark. Okay. How relevant it will be for a manufacturing plant in India, which might have been using an old technology? That's again a question mark. Okay. So what we have been able to do and try to do is to see what is the areas of IoT Industry 4.0, what can be implemented, how it can be implemented, and what can be a framework for implementation of digitalization in an MSME or an Indian factory. Okay. And that's how we have been trying to grow while we are an American company headquartered in the United States, how to utilize the knowledge and the technology there and how to bring it in India, how to modify it for India is what we are trying to do. Okay. One example, because I know, I had only 5 minutes and I have already taken 4. The last thing which I want to say is, we have worked in a 100-year-old plant, a cement plant, and again a paper factory, which had a 80-year-old machine, which was still running. Okay. But they were thinking if they're going to implement digitalization, they'll have to change the whole machine. And the cost of implementation will be changing the whole machine to a new digital machine. So what we have been able to create a small platform, a small, I will say hardware, which can be implemented and worked with the digital analog machines of old machines and try to see how can we get some data out of it. I'm not saying all, but at least some level of digitalization, some level of data capture. And what we can do is now, at least we are able to control them. At least we are able to work with them. At least we are able to get many data, which can help us in taking the right decision. Okay. What I'm trying to say as a second message is, don't think that you have to get rid of all your analog large machines or large setups. That's a high cost, and people are having their own mindset that if I'll have to go to digitalization, if I'll have to do digital, then I'll have to change all my machines. There'll be no change in machines. There'll be some level of automation, some level of digitalization we can easily do with the new modified hardwares, which we can attach to your existing um, machines and can bring them to some level of digitalization. And that has been implemented. It's not that we have not. I'm just saving you a theory. I have already implemented in a cement plant and in a paper factory, which was existing for around 70, 80 years. Okay. So this is possible. Things are improving. People are utilizing it. And there's a huge level of organization level acceptance of implementation of AI and ML and digital solutions. Thank you very much. I'll be very happy to answer any question if there is any. Thank you. Back to Rajiv.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatnagar, for your address. Now we'll be releasing CII Deloitte white paper on AI and ML, new way of modern digitalization. Thank you, Ajay. May I now have the pleasure to invite our guest of honor, Mr. Arun Kumar Jha, for his special address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you very much. Thank you, CII, for inviting me on this very important webinar. Actually, I completely agree with all my previous speakers when they say that how important AI, ML, IoT, etc. is good for industry, good for India. And from a government perspective, the 5 trillion economy can be achieved only by these things. And when Mr. Rishi was telling about the MSME sector, in MSME sector also, that adoption of this AI, ML or IoT or even digitalization is very, very slow only because of the cost and understanding also. But cost comes later, understanding comes first. Now with the added retail and business and wholesale business in the MSME sector, you can imagine 8.5 crores of MSME in India. And if I give you a figure that not even 99% of them are out of even, they do not have their website. Hardly 10% we use email. So this all those analog, machines, how to generate data, idea is that suppose you, like Mr. Rishi was saying, that if you put a sensor on an analog machine, at least you can derive some data. The quality, how do we minimize wastages? Mr. Regu was telling about the energy efficiency. Suppose through AI, we are able to understand what time the power should be switched on, what time power should be switched on. I'm just giving you an example, and every MSME has a scope for saving more than 10 to 20% of energy. And so the larger industry. So AI can work better in the larger industry, at the same time they can work better in the MSME also. So point I'm saying, how to enhance all these efficiencies. And that's why CII can use their platform to generate these data from all their members. What they are doing for digitalization. Mr. Kishore, let us join hands and try to find out how many of your members, you have got 1,500 and odd association under your federation. Every association will have 200 or 300 of members. Try to see that how many of them are doing something, even whether they have got any customer relation application or not. How many of them are having sensor? How many of them are having a smart, manufacturing machine which can see how the quality of the products are. We can do a lot of work, and it is written on the wall that without this we cannot achieve it. So I will not take much time because it is already delayed. So I wish all the best for all the participants here, and I thank CII for this kind of organizing such kind of good webinar, and I think we'll have a very, very fruitful takeaway from this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights. Your address today is truly inspiring. May I now request Mr. Jayaraman for delivering his concluding remarks and vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. Mr. Jha, thank you very much for your valuable comments. I will start by saying what you said is very appropriate. Cost later, understanding now. And I think that's actually the spirit of this conference. And I also agree with you completely. We need to look at what is happening around us, have an understanding of everybody in the industry, large corporates, MSMEs, and figure out how all this is coming together and working for our betterment. And I really do thank Regu for his comments on energy efficiency. I mean, it is extremely important for us to understand efficiencies and how AI and ML can be applicable into multiple sectors. That was very valuable. And I think thank you very much, Mr. Garg. It was a pleasure to hear from you about agility, adaptability, and which will result in digital sustainability. That was very valuable to hear that from you. And I I also, with Dr. Bhatnagar, I think having your own company and driving AI on a day-to-day basis, it was a privilege to hear your insights and thoughts of someone who is right there in the middle of it all. And my friend Rajiv and me have been partners in this conclave for, I would say, better part of more than 7, 8, if not the total 11. And it's always a pleasure to be here with you, Rajiv. And I know at the end of it all, what is very important for all of us is the fact that there are concepts and there are certain underlying themes that are important for each of us in our little industries, little sectors, little jobs, little worlds that we live in. But if we bring them out together into the broader ecosystem and the space that these platforms provide, we'll be able to collaborate, we'll be able to learn, we'll be able to move with that agility that is required in today's world. And to that effect, I want to really thank all the panelists for sharing.
There are many people here.
Greatly appreciate it. I'm sorry we ran over time.
Yeah.
Or if I don't believe we have run over time.
If you join as a guest, then it will not work. You're supposed to join as a speaker only. I'm not sure why it's showing like that. I'll just check some it.
Okay.
ठीक है, आप check करो.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just.
Okay. So I guess we have a thank you note from them as well, from the IT department. So we shall on that good note and a good laugh. Let us wish this conference all success, and we all look forward to staying in touch and driving manufacturing innovation in India. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Back to you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We note that the report which we have released today is available in the lobby of CII platform. Now, we would be starting our first panel discussion, impact of technologies like AI and ML on the Indian manufacturing sector. And we have a very eminent panelist who will be sharing their knowledge with the participants. Mr. Sri Kamath, a partner Deloitte India, will moderate this panel discussion. May I now request Mr. Kamath to start the panel discussion. Over to Mr. Kamath.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this very important and very close. I've been working very closely with the manufacturing sector, and the Industry 4.0 and digitalization has actually given an opportunity for Indian manufacturing to take the country to the next level with respect to performance, productivity, quality, and cost. Let me first introduce the very eminent panel that is here with us today to share their thoughts and perspectives on the topic of impact of technologies like AI and ML on Indian manufacturing sector. We have Mr. Ajay Lal, Vice President and Head Manufacturing, Commercial Vehicle Business Unit, Tata Motors Limited. We have Mr. Harish Mehra, Global Head and Industry Advisor, Industry 4.0, Tata Consultancy Services Limited. We have Mr. Jagdish Gande, Executive Vice President, Manufacturing and Technology, Piaggio Vehicle India Private Limited. We have Mr. Sunil Khurana, Executive VP Operations, JCB India Limited. We have Mr. Pradeep Kirnapure, Distinguished Engineer and CTO, Applications and AI Practice, Hugsistic. We have Mr. Jasjit Singh Sethi, CEO, TCI Supply Chain Solutions. And we have Mr. Rajesh Tangi, Chief Digital Officer, Next Gen Data Center and Cloud Technologies Private Limited. As you can see, the panel comes in from very diverse backgrounds, both who are very much part of industry and who are part of bringing in new solutions and innovations and offerings to support the manufacturing sector. And I'm sure that this will be a very interesting session as we go through their thoughts. Just to lay down the context for this, and we heard some of the speakers, very eminent speakers earlier in the earlier session talk about it. Smart manufacturing has been around now for some time. Every manufacturing organization is exploring ways to adopt some of these technologies. And the outcome that they're expecting is very clear. Can we produce more Can we produce better quality at lower cost? This has been the focus for all manufacturing organizations since time memorial. The focus of this adoption, however, and adoption of Industry 4.0 and digital, if we look at it as to where it has led us, the two words that come to mind are connectivity and transparency. So a lot of the adoption of digital and Industry 4.0 has been in terms of how can we connect equipment within the shop floor, how can we connect devices, how can we get a real-time visibility of data, of how machines are performing, how operations are performing, so that visibility can help us in taking better decision. It can help us in detection of problems early on. It can help us improve efficiency because we are able to see. And now we are moving slowly into the next phase. Why this phase is happening? Because of this connectivity and transparency that has been happening over the last few years, we have a tremendous amount of data that has built up. We have a tremendous amount of access to this equipment, and we can collect very easily, store and analyze very easily all this data that's coming up. And therefore, the new phase that is coming in is to say, how can we leverage this data? How can we leverage all of these this visibility that has been coming up, and go to optimization and go to predictability? And that is the new or the next phase in the Industry 4.0 journey that is coming up. And the idea is AI and ML is right there, at this cusp of the new phase, where it is a technology, or where these technologies can help us achieve exactly that. The ability to analyze this data, create models, create digital twins, support simulation in order to understand and then deploy these technologies to help us optimize processes, help us make them more efficient, and thereby build better quality products at lower cost, right? And that's what we have our panelists here to help us understand what has this opportunity that is coming up in the manufacturing sector on AI ML. What are some of the examples that they are seeing in the either the industries that they work in or the industries that they serve? What kind of examples that they're seeing? And more importantly, what is the impact of the adoption of AI and ML that they can see? And lastly, I'd like them to give their perspective about what is it that they see as the future of AI ML as these technologies become more mature, as new applications come into play, new algorithms come in. What do they see as the future of AI ML in the manufacturing sector as we move forward from a 3 to 5 year perspective? As they go through their own perspectives and experiences, would urge all the participants to put down your questions in the chat box on your CII Hive application, and we'll try and answer as many as we can based on the availability of time. With that, let me invite Mr. Ajay Lal to give his perspective and his thoughts on the topic. Mr. Lal, over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly well.
Very good. And you can also see me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So these are important things to ask in all the presentation these days. So good afternoon, everybody, once again. And thank you, first of all, for inviting me for this. And in my view, this is a very important subject that has been taken up today. And AI is really like, is doing to industry what perhaps electricity did to our industry many years back. This is changing things in many different ways, and we are all experiencing this every day in our daily lives. Once you get into Amazon for buying something, you will see how your purchase predictions are made even without your knowing, and even without anybody teaching the system. It is learning, it is doing it by itself. If you watch Netflix, you watch one or two or three videos, the next ones will be recommended by them, and chances are that you are going to go for that because somebody has actually learned your pattern and understood your preferences, and therefore it is able to tell you what you might like to watch or where you might like to navigate to. So these are simple examples. If we coming from my own industry, if we talk about self-driving car, it is nothing but an application of deep learning. How the data from structured, unstructured data is taken from different sources, processed, so much so that a car is able to drive through, driverless, speech recognition, robotics. So all these are great examples of artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning. And as I told you, this is changing our lives in many different ways. And I think this is something which is going to stay. And the companies which are able to leverage this in both their back end and front end are going to really thrive. Or the chances are that the people who don't, they will get left behind. So these are my initial comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ajay Lal. Mr. Mehra, over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Kamath. I hope I am audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thanks. See, a lot has been stated already on the importance of AI ML, which is today the kind of examples which we are referring here, like Netflix, Amazons, and others. At that space, definitely, the whole technology has matured, business benefits are getting realized, and the manufacturing as a sector is trying to adopt these digital disruptions for their benefit. And in the initial pitch, Mr. Raghu talked about wastages. Every plant wants to minimize that wastage, needs to be more efficient, needs to be more flexible, needs to be more agile with their ever-changing supply chain demand needs. And in order to achieve all this, how AI ML is going to be leveraged for building newer level of capabilities, which helps you in the reduction of these wastages, is the key. Whether you are running an AI ML for doing the energy optimization, or you are trying to look into a line collecting data and trying to improve the throughput of that line, you want to model the knowledge which is residing with people in documents, how it can be converted. It can be image analytics driven capabilities for plant safety, or ability to build the inspection system which is manually done today to avoid human interventions. And the problem which when a particular such scenarios where human try to enter something and he enters some information which is not correct. So it's a mix, and what we believe AI ML is successfully being piloted, and it is now getting adoption in even at a scale level for different nature of traditional problems which industry exists, which are associated with asset reliability, which can be associated with quality, improving yields from reactors, improving a throughput of a fill and pack lines, energy optimizations, logistics associated with the goods movement inbound and outbound. Uh, and it will be a game changer. The why it is will be a game changer. See, initially industry is using the data, but primarily for the visualization purpose, for measuring the performance purpose. Now with the information which has been collected, you are looking for patterns into this, and you want to be more predictive. You want to know that asset may go down in next 2 hours. You may want to see that quality is drifting and it can be corrected. If something on a fill and pack line goes wrong, huge material wastage happens by the time an operator will be able to react it. My ability to sense those anomalies, model them, and from my simulation capabilities, I should be able to put the corrective what if analysis and then actually get into the OT layer and control those nature. So the whole idea is there was a data-driven manufacturing which is growing. It was there in past also, but at some maturity level, which is giving you delta benefit. Now with AI ML coming in, it will be an exponential benefit. And the people who are early adopters of this will be in a very different capability from a marketplace perspective, and for others to catch up, because connecting to OT layer data is not that straightforward. We have so much of legacy system. My colleague was talking about cement plant, which is 80 years old. Imagine if you want to extract information from a motor for vibration, current, it's not that straightforward. One important aspect which needs to be remembered is as it is data driven, as it is going to be predictive, there is a next stage which is self-aware, which is system driven. So how data which is used, which is collected, and the other modeling capability and simulation capability, the knowledge which is residing in people, all can come together, and then you can construct a autonomous running plan which is highly optimized, which is highly efficient, and it gives you the flexibility what you always need from the plants to manage their the dynamism in their respective supply chain. So that's what I feel AI is going to make the difference to manufacturing, and we are at TCS level, we are engaged with customers, delivering that value, hand-holding the customers to scale so that it has a meaningful impact on their balance sheets. And it will be those nature of companies will definitely have an upper hand and an advantage who are early adopters of this. Is what I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mehra, for your initial thoughts. Mr. Gande.
Hello. You can hear me?
Yes, Mr. Gande.
Yeah,
yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon to all. Good afternoon to all
Good
the listeners and my fellow panel members. As far as the AI and the ML is concerned, it's a technology, yes, in the manufacturing, which each one of us adapt. It's a buzzword now, manufacturing 4.0. For manufacturing industry, in my view, adapting to the latest technology is not a new thing. And one has to adapt to the new technology, yes or no. I think nobody's having a second thought in his mind that to remain, the competitive in the present business situation, where you need to compete globally, and continuously there is a need of improving the efficiencies in terms of your qualitative output as well as the cost of the manufacturing. So technology always have helped. So there is no doubt in anyone's mind, I think, that AI and the ML will help to become more competitive. The question here is that how do we go about it? And this is what it will make a difference for each of the industry. So what way we are trying to do in that Piaggio that I can share with you in a small way, that basically we look forward what is the change situation. Okay, as always the competitiveness and the global competition is there, but with the pandemic and then recently all automotive world what we have gone through from BS4 to BS6, it has added a huge variety in the product. Secondly, the products have become more electronic savvy. So you take any we are talking about automatic cars and all that, but even if you take a standard products, the content of electronics have gone to a huge level. As far as the all this variety, the new technology, as well as the situation change in the business, have created a different type of challenges today. Today on each shop floor, we need to manage huge variety. We need not to have a big batches. Whatever the big industry you have today, you have to create a lot of variety. And you have to have a short lead time because you need to respond to the market very fast. So the old days are gone that you will manufacturing planning, MRPs, and then plan your efficiency and do that. It's not so. You have to immediately respond. So today's situation in manufacturing is a very fast response to the market, work with very high cost and quality efficiencies, and at the same time manage a huge variety. So now when we look at it, we first thought that what is that is happening on the shop floor. Is my first the shop supervisors, my people directly at the shop who are managing this show are at very much high pressure and stress, and they need to be first helped for the with the technology. And this is why then we took this initiative of digitization with the theme of the empowerment, empowering our people to take a consistently right decisions. Because this is we can discuss it more detail, but what we are looking forward to implement this in mainly four areas. One, as everyone knows, that supply chain area. You can think about improving your logistics and control your inventories with the more dynamic situation happening around with the sales. Second area is the quality. There is a huge requirement of be a zero defect, whatever the you can't be excused for that. So maintaining that with the huge variety is a challenge, and today it is humanly difficult to manage so much of variety in the same line. Another most important area we are working is the waste management in the manufacturing. And the third area is the cost. That is through basically the energy management. Again, we can use a lot of technology, AI. We have, in fact, so many things we have already done. And another is a maintenance. Each one is talking about the conditional maintenance or predictive maintenance. So these are the areas. And one more most important, we are trying to use this technology also to improve further the safety at the shop floor. So definitely AI and this ML is useful. Only my comment on this that basically we have to understand what we need. Each business, each manufacturing setup requires a different kind of upgradation with this technology, and then accordingly one has to go for it. That's what my comments initially on this.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Mr. Kande. So Sunil Khurana. Mr. Khurana, you are on mute. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So good afternoon. Am I audible now?
Yeah, very much. Perfect.
Good. Thank you, Sridhar. So I think we have heard three speakers till now. I will not repeat all those things about quality, cost. We have all those challenges, time to market. I will bring in three more areas, or let's say challenges that we have encountered in the last few months, years. One is the COVID, which has actually necessitated this need. We have been growing in the last 20, 30 years consistently at a steady pace. Things have completely changed now. Are we growing? Yes, we're still growing, but it has become more uncertain. It has become more cyclical. 1 month you do something which you cannot do, and the other month your capacity is idling to 50%, 40%, maybe 20% as well. So this is number one which I wanted to bring out. Number two, that challenge brings a secondary challenge of skill and motivated people. Now, how do you keep people skilled and motivated enough? Cost is one part, because at times you downsize, at times you take so many people in. So how do you manage that? Number three, sustainability. And I think a couple of them talked about the energy savings and all those things. But in these three elements, if we bring in, we talked about machine learning, we talked about reducing downtime, we talked about predictability, but I think sustainability is at top right now. And with the building management system and all those things that we are doing, which talk about more for less. You have less equipment because you have better predictability. You have less people because you utilize them properly. You have less capacities because you can probably leverage your existing capacity because of your connected factories and so on and so forth. So sustainability, I think, becomes number one. And number two, obviously, is meeting demand. As we all know, I have seen the journey in JC for last so many years, from 2 machines to 260, 70 machines odd in so many years. And someone also talked about the variations in the machine. It used to be 1 machine, so absolutely no variation, or 2 machines, same machines going down the track. Not all 260 machines going down the track are different. How do you manage that? So talk about manufacturing, talk about assembly, talk about sustainability, people, safety. The other big part is that we are trying to do is how do we connect a complete end-to-end solution, not only a smart factory, but how does a sales portal link to a manufacturing portal and then to a suppliers portal? Because supply chain has also become a very difficult proposition nowadays, with all the markets picking up simultaneously, and I'm sure all of us are facing the same challenges. Either we don't have orders, and if we have orders, we don't have parts. So how do we interlink all those things with the help of AI ML is going to be a challenge for next few days, and I think this is going to help. This is only going to help us to make the business easier. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Khurana. Mr. Pradeep Kirnapure.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Kirnapure, you are audible.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, everybody.
Good
On behalf
afternoon.
of USystic, I would like to thank CII for giving us opportunity to be part of this esteemed panel. So upfront, I would like to quote Dr. Andrew Yang. He rightly said, AI is a new electricity. It can enable a number of new value-added applications. It is similar to where the adoption of electricity during the Industry 2.0 help in mass production of equipment. So as things are moving, the AI is increasingly being a decision-making system rather than the traditional decision support system. As you all know, the AI system, mostly those based on the deep learning, are inspired by the neural net model of the brain. The brain doesn't work in itself. There are other organs in the body that together collaborates with the brain to carry out some sensory and rotary motion. In a similar manner, the smart industry needs to have lots of matured ecosystem in place to have, that will work with the AI system to have something useful. The ecosystem could be sensors, actuators, even human resources could be important part of that. Data, the transport hub, the communication path, everything that goes into that. So as AI, for the success of AI, you need to have matured ecosystem. Some of the most common AI ML use cases in the manufacturing sectors are related to image analytics, prediction, anomaly detection. The prediction could be about need for preventive maintenance or impeding failure. Anomaly could be operational or environment parameters or even machine input output. So they are well-known use cases. USystic is a solution provider, and we work for our customer to build solutions. Some of the specific applications of AI for our customers in the manufacturing sector, I will quote those. While AI is a new metaphorical electricity, the industry still relies on the old electricity. It needs that old electricity. So my use case is about the power supply, I think. So one of our customer was building smart batteries. So those smart batteries had a lot of onboard sensors. So it was reporting the smart solid-state batteries were reporting state of charge, state of health, temperature, etc. So we worked on a solution that predicted the life of the battery, proactively flagged the need for replacement of those batteries. This helped in ensuring that the secondary power is always up and in ready state to serve the power supply demand in the event of main supply failure. Thus, the adaptation of MI help in ensuring continuity of the plant operations. Another example is about AI taking over the use case is about manufacturing of high precision and rugged metal fitting such as nut and bolt for military applications. Typically, the military application have very stringent standards. The raw material used, the machine environment are known to influence the quality of fittings. So different parameters such as temperature, viscosity of the coolant, force applied by the casting tooling, etc. We use all of them in the multivariate analysis to arrive at optimal operation parameters that would be the best quality of the fittings. Further, the computer vision was considered for visual inspection and audit of the final fitting. Thus, the adaptation of AI/ML helped in consistently meeting the quality targets. Looking ahead, there are a few things that we in the future. First one is democratizing of AI. AI by the industry and AI for the early adopters of AI system would publish pre-trained model that are industry vertical specific and possibly as a SaaS model, and this will help late adopter to quickly deploy AI and ML solutions. This will also reduce the iterative learning loop for those systems. Second one is about the use of access. I believe the human machine interface that exists today will evolve with time. Something like gesture-based control or voice-based commands, that would be something that will soon come in the manufacturing industry. I would like to conclude by mentioning some of the challenges in the AI ML system that are relevant to manufacturing sector. Number one, about ROI is a lot of people are talking about ROI. Do you want to do the upfront investment, and what do I get with that upfront investment versus deploying a personnel that could do the thing. So now, given the scale of operation, if the scale is big, they may think about deploying a thing. If the scale is small, they'll have to rethink. The next one is about interpretability of the results. Modern AI systems are based on deep learning networks, and they are more of black box. It's difficult to explain the reasoning behind the inferences made by the AI system. This seems to be the key innovator for the adaptation of AI system, as the operation team are not very willing to rely on the AI system here cannot be explained. Lastly, the AI systems are probabilistic in nature by design versus the traditional rule-based systems. The algorithm tends to choose the most likely path based on the input and output mapping. There is a non-zero probability of choosing an incorrect mapping. Again, the stakeholders are not open to deploy the AI decision-making system unless the trial results show that the accuracy of the AI system on day one meets the or exceed the present level. So that's the day one demand, and that's where things get stuck. They said, why don't you demonstrate a solution? And then we don't have the model that is exactly trained for that use case, and then it gets stuck up, and we'll go to multiple iterative loops. With that, I end my brief talk. I will hand over to Sridhar. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Kinnavar. I think that you brought out some very, very important points from an adoption perspective as well as from a future. And probably will also, once we have the initial thoughts from everybody, I will probably spend some time trying to look at what, from other panelists, also their thoughts on these topics as well. But before we get there, can I request Mr. Jasjit Singh Sethi to give his thoughts, please?
Thank you, Sridhar. Very good deliberations so far. I think the larger point what I am trying to, understand out here is that mostly we talk about manufacturing. We talk four for plant. And when we talk about, industry 4.0, it is more digital. It's not only the physical part, but the digital part as well. So supply chain comes into play in a very major way. So industry 4.0 and by its extension, supply chain 4.0 is something which actually is done starting from the raw material to the tier 2 supplier, to the tier 1, to the OEM. Because whatever you're going to predict to make after 1 week, that needs to be also planned with regard to your supply chain. The example of the semiconductor shortage tells us that we actually do not see until we see it, because we are not having a glass pipeline of from the raw material onwards, that where we would be given these scenarios. So before we come to AI and ML, the basic part of forecasting, which is forecasting as per the Gartner covers three parts. One is what happened. Second is why it happened. Third is what will happen. And the fourth part, as Mr. Lal also alluded to, is how we can make it happen. That's the example of Netflix suggesting you क्या आपको करना क्या है आगे, what you have to watch. That's making you prescriptive actually. So currently, in terms of analytical, I think we are probably at what happened and not even why it happened. Forget about the prediction part of it. So I think the first part of any industry 4.0 would revolve around making that supply chain from the cradle, which is from the raw material, till the plant, with a forecast showing that what are the cause and effect of each of the components, which can impact production if production were to be normal, if it were to go down by 30-40%, if it were to go up. And not only your own company, but other companies as well. Today, I feel that kind of visibility from that level is missing. Hence, what happens is that we are not able to optimize our plants and our raw material also. And many times we are working on a basis of what actually we can do post a situation. The second point, I think, is that the need to drive technology. The thought, what we need to do, and how we need to do it. We make a framework, and that should drive technology. Sometimes the tail wags the dog, but that's not a desired situation. It should be the need deciding what technology we should use, and not the other way around. So this is something which I think we, who are the non-tech people, also have a far greater role to play than the tech people. We know कि हमें कराना क्या है, हम चाहते क्या हैं, and this is that the right tech needs to come in, and it can come in from basic things like process automation. It can come from algorithms, then go to these machine learnings, which keeps those data live, and goes to an AI. That what can happen. So this process needs to be done, and we are still very far behind. We still haven't come to an industry 4.0. This was talked about 10 years ago in Germany, and we're talking about AI. So sometimes we are probably chasing a rainbow on this. The last point is going to leave the audience here with is that how would they do it if they were making a new plant today? The only new plant coming in India in the recent times is probably the plant of Ola. How are they doing it differently versus how we have done it? Sometimes when we already have a historical location, a traditional infrastructure, and processes, for us to change that is very difficult. So Tesla was not the first car to make electric car. They were Nissan Leaf had come in, but Tesla changed the way it was done. So when we talk about data is a new gold, is in industry 4.0 will be able to done the same plants, or we need to look at probably having a completely new idea and having new kind of plants to work along with that, to actually harness the power of this technology. Because the VUCA world, like somebody mentioned during of COVID, so that VUCA world has been there for 10 years now. COVID was a very severe case of VUCA. You would either have a VUCA for demand or you would have it for manufacturing. That would continue. So probably prediction and prescription is the way forward. And we need to look at designing a physical networks also to be in sync with the digital networks. The last part I want to just leave here with is that there is now a need to have a control tower in all the manufacturing, which takes trace supply from the raw material till the point of coming to the OEM, because these legs, besides the first leg of the tier 1 to the plant, is very much opaque to the OEM. They do not know what is happening in the tier 1's plant also. Forget about tier 2 and the raw material. So this is something which, as an information with data flowing today, is probably, I would say, the need of the hour, because AI, ML, and Industry 4.0 would not be played in the four walls of a plant, but much on a global arena, as you know, in the semiconductor one. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Some very new points there as well, and I think that they're worth pondering as well. Mr. Dangi, your thoughts, please.
Thank you so much. I think I started my career way back 30 years in manufacturing, was part of Supreme Industries, managed some 25, 30 locations, and Being an IT manager, I always was trying to learn the business. But it's glad to be a part of this forum, and I want to bring a different perspective because I think AI is already sold. What can be done, what use cases are there. I think my friends have already talked about it in the detail, and they are actually near to the reality. I wanted to bring this perspective into 4 or 5 M's, right? Your manufacturing. What are the things which are happening in manufacturing? How the machining can be used. I came from Supreme Industries, so I knew that, okay, CNC machines and, doing milling or anything was so much cumbersome that you have to get that, drawing, then load it into the CNC machine and all that. And now I see, there are companies in Japan who are actually deciphering that 3D model and giving you quote in 10 minutes in terms of time, effort, and resources. So this is all about AI, right? AI is about pattern recognition, data analytics, doing any kind of computation on the fly and correlating data. So I wanted to bring a different perspective in terms of how I see this. I've been part of a STEAM panel with Intel for democratizing of data and then bringing in certain new kind of solutions for our customers. So we have video analytics as a service which is based on AI/ML models, and it is already working. Where a few of the friends out there spoke about COVID. So with the traditional existing camera, you can actually look at whether the person is wearing mask, whether that person is maintaining social distancing, whether that person or group of people are together for a quite a while time, and then you send notifications on that. But these are all tactical AI, kind of things. I wanted to touch base into 3 Ds, right? One is data. I think a lot of people have said that, and I have seen it. I work with Supreme, and the injection molding machines we're only talking to a PLC computer, and that is very difficult for getting that 32-bit textual kind of a data back in that days into Oracle or any kind of such data. So a lot of these things which are happening to us is actually transforming us, but we are not having a data strategy. For any organization, how do we collect the data? How do we host this data, or how do we process the data? How many of us are actually learning this in terms of how to take it to the next level of data models, and then at least putting our requirements in place, connecting the dots. And let's take a quick example of logistics. I think today route planning, GPS-based planning, everything is on our phones, but it doesn't tell you a correlation between the condition of the road, weather forecast. I work with Coca-Cola India, and I used to track empty bottles, because if an empty bottle doesn't come, all my raw material is there in my factory, but I can't go back and take a production run. So how do we correlate that? How do I sell it on the field where my distributors are going, and which are the my customers are buying this or not? So we actually started collecting those different pieces of data, then started processing that. At that time we never knew that it is AI or something like that, but now we know that all these correlations, data models, algorithms are freely available. Freely available, I mean, is that if you exactly know what is your requirement and you get some expert for a few hours, you can actually put some kind of a basic model to look at that. Second aspect is about devices. Right now, the kind of devices we're talking about in factories, I think it is humongous. We have so many of the sensors, so many of the devices, so many of the applications, and all of these HVACs or BMS systems people talked about, air quality monitoring, pollution control, kind of panels that you're actually aggregating this data to. All of these things are actually not bringing that data to a central data lake. And these devices are now becoming far more smarter, where in the earlier facial recognition, you wanted to actually take these feeds to a cloud and then do it. But right now you do it actually on your phone. Most of us are using facial-based authentication to unlock our phones, biometric to do some kind of transaction. So AI is already part of our kind of daily things. How do we use this AI effectively? Because the large scale like telecom and device manufacturers have solved it. One of the biggest thing is that AI is not new. It was part of 1970s, 70s, where tuning, did the cipher machine and all that. But we were not having resources to do that. Now we have faster processors. I think our phones are far more capable of doing processing than traditional computers or any kind of workstation that we have. whereas our networks are getting far more stronger. Earlier, we used to have very less connectivity kind of challenges, saying that okay, do you have Wi-Fi or RFID or a Bluetooth? But now we are getting into a satellite broadband. Imagine the kind of for India, if you get a right policy and do that thrust in next 3 to 6 months, you can connect all the plants. I remember my first link that I wanted to establish in one of my plants in Supreme was a 64 kbps ISDN line. So it was not even sending us back and forth. And today we are into gigabytes, right? We transfer data at 500 to 600 Mbps in second with fibers and all that. With satellite broadband, with 5G, I think 5G is a different topic that would actually create so many opportunities for connecting these devices with IPv6 of addressing, where you're actually not restricted to number of addresses you can have. You can actually give address to every sand particle in this entire on the entire earth. So those kind of addresses are available, those kind of possibilities of network are available. Our Qualcomm 5G processors are already being tested on devices with few of the ads that I'm seeing, and those devices are coming in. The similar thing will get adopted into our manufacturing area also, where the controls will automatically become intelligent. So you don't have to actually put any effort into that. I know my production manager never allowed me to touch a PLC machine. I used to take it offline because he says that if you mess it up with me, I can't produce. And that is the liveliness. So realities are reality. That like a few of us said that, oh, is it a rainbow? It is a rainbow. We are chasing a rainbow, but that's a aspiration and hope. Otherwise, the curiosity or your innovation will not come in. There is no ROI for AI. It is written on innovations. That if you don't innovate, you don't sustain, you don't survive. There are so many things that we can talk about in terms of data center and capabilities of producing. We have CPUs, FPGAs. We are far more ahead of the curve today. With Industry 4 is not about giving somebody a dream. It is all about enablement. We have enabled processing at the data centers. We have enabled connectivity. We have enabled smart devices. So the entire ecosystem is actually coming together. But unless and until we have use cases where we do end-to-end of these things, like for logistics and or any kind of monitoring of certain things, these things will be very difficult unless we have a strategy in place. And that is where I see most of the manufacturing guys that we talk. We talked about Ola. We are actually working with them and giving them everything that they need in terms of enabling that. Intel is invested onto us, so we have access to their technologies. We create POC models. We actually have HPC, which is high performance computers, which are now offered by us free of charge to all the academia and institutions at 1 lakh core hours free, because we want to be participating in to make India and kind of transform and do certain things. More than happy to be in this panel. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think some very, very good that have come in from a perspective of saying that yes, there are significant potential opportunities that we can see, and many of these opportunities are very clear. Most of us have spoken about it. Some of us have experienced it within our within our businesses or with the clients that we work with. But one of the themes that came in is that are we chasing a rain, right? And that's something that I want to quickly get views from all our panelists today. And that's about saying that that's not where we want to be. We don't want to be AI and ML as something which we are trying to somehow chase, and it's a new fad that's coming in. We want that it has to be adopted by the industry, by all manufacturing sector to deliver significant improvement and significantly better performance than what we are doing today. The potential is there, but probably there are certain challenges that need to be overcome, and we may need to make sure that we are doing something different than what we are doing today to help us to adopt this this blockbuster of a technology or technologies which can help us to get there. And the question to all of you, I just want to ask is, therefore, if we go into the future, the next 3 to 5 years, two things: what needs to be different? What do we need to do differently to make sure that the adoption is much better? And therefore, how do you see the outlook for technologies like AI, ML in this sector as we go into the future? So just a very quick thought from all of you, and then we can open for questions. So can I request Mr. Mehra to begin your thoughts on how this could be done?
Yeah, see, Mr. Kamath, we are almost pretty much, what the other speakers have told is around the technology, the art of possible into this. And believe me, being part of the technology organization, these technologies are maturing very fast. The solution providers, the platform providers like Azure, AWS are also making it more affordable and making it easier for the people to adopt this. And we see a very rapid change in terms of maturing these applications into this. But when it comes to manufacturing, though at the other one end these are maturing, what we believe is an ability to architect this solution in a manner that they can go to a scale in different plants is one of the key aspects of it. Why we are stating this is because we all know plants within a plant, actually, you may be producing multiple products. You may be having 2 lines which you initially started with and maybe added another line after 10 years. You may have different SKUs which you are producing across the plants. So the kind of variety which needs to be managed is not easy. It is reasonably complex. So if you are architecting it in a manner that I'm solving a problem of a yield improvement of a reactor, say, as an example, and you go to another plant and it's a different process, it's a different automation, tag points. So scaling up that is extremely difficult in that sense. So it's whole maturing the technology at one end. The other is on the ability to architect in a manner where you can scale, where you design this application at a very abstracted level, from a process definition viewpoint, from an asset definition viewpoint, from an optimization problem solving viewpoint, an ability to scale it. Because once it is at scale, it has meaningful impact from a business value creation perspective, or the kind of flexibility or kind of agility you want to bring into this. The second aspect which we are seeing is today, most of the solutions we are talking are driven from data, and they need to be being connected. Most of the discussions we are referring to how the value needs to be connected and how data-driven constructs needs to be built, patterns has to be recognized. But we believe that in future, the technology which is futuristic, like digital twins or cyber physical kind of systems, which is for self-aware operations, needs more than what data can provide. So it needs a lot of simulation capabilities. So your ability to build or integrate whatever existing simulation tool sets we have from your process definitions or from your product definitions viewpoint, that needs to be leveraged. And another key element could be on the knowledge side of it. Because many times you find that if something goes haywire, there is a specific person who rectifies it. Knowledge is residing in so much of documentation which is provided when you have set up the plants by the OEMs, in your P&D diagram, process FMEA definition and all. Do you have an ability to model all that? And today technology is there to again use it. So a combination of data, combination of simulation, and combination of knowledge base is, we believe, is going to be the future to drive a complete truly Industry 4.0 cyber physical, self-aware, self-healing kind of system. So that's I see it's the technology which is moving rapidly. New products are coming to support these nature of solution constructs. It is getting more adopted, piloted, scaled, and we believe in the cost of ownership of having these solutions are also drastically coming down. So that's the viewpoint I have.
That's I think what you're saying is there is a significant potential, but there are things that we need to do to make sure that that potential becomes a reality. Mr. Khurana, your thoughts?
So I think there is not one solution that fits all, and we started this journey 2 years ago, but we failed more than one or twice, and then we found a solution. So as Mr. Mehra talked about scalable, for 1.5 years we were just doing hit and try, and I'm talking about connected factories. I'm not talking about AI and ML right now. So it took us 1.5 years to reach a solution. We tried various things and then suddenly found out that we have something in our product, which is a GPS equipment which talks to us through the dealer, through the customer. So we shortlisted it, used it in all our equipment, and then it was scaled quickly. So 200 odd equipment done in 3 months time. So I think a lot of planning has to be done. We cannot depend on the big technology providers because they do not know what solution we are looking for. And that also brings in an angle of ROI, because until unless you know what you are going to get, it is all there in the mind. I'm going to get, let's say, 100% quality right, or 100 RFT, or 0 wastages, or 99% utilization. But it's all in your mind. Until unless you try it, you use it, you will not know what is going to come. So ROI is kind of impossible. The only way is you start doing it in pilots and then taste the success and then go ahead. So that's one thing that I know, that we started doing it with the one or two of the big technology implementers. They did the survey. They said, okay, we do this. You pay us 50 crore rupees. But what we achieved right now is probably 1 or 2 crore rupees, and then now we have a real asset management device where anyone can see what's happening, which factory, which part of India, real time. So that's one. And then I think we have a roadmap as to how do we achieve artificial intelligence and machine learning in next 2 to 3 years time. Again, we will pilot with small thing probably next year. So I think one solution does not fit all. So we have to have our own knowledge, as Mr. Mehra said, talent pool. Unfortunately, manufacturing guys are not so IT savvy, so I think it needs time to develop. So you have to find out people who are IT savvy, and then they know manufacturing as well, because they have to be good at both the things. It is not possible that they know IT very well, they don't know about manufacturing, and the other does work as well. And then take a support of startups and all those things to develop your own architecture, because I come back to the same point, not one solution fits all. So I think it's a journey that we have to learn. Are we chasing the tail? No, we are not. I think there are some substantial improvements that I have seen in my organization, and I'm sure whatever roadmap we have created, we will get there. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Your views quickly. Mr. Ajay Lal, your views on.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see.
Great. So fantastic. I think I fully agree with what Mr. Mehra said and what Mr. Khurana said. And if I can tell you example of what we have done in our company, I think we have identified the pain areas in our company to start with, and did some POCs, proof of concepts, as Mr. Khurana was mentioning, doing something small, and really learning out of these and then scaling it up, as was mentioned earlier. So I'll just give you an example. And a good point was mentioned about the people who would do it, the resources that would be deployed in this. So what we did actually was, picked up some of our young engineers from the shop floor and took them through a program, digital program. This was a 1-year program, which was inclusive of theoretical inputs, and they had to deliver some projects. So we created, so to say, digital champions out of them, and they are the ones who are supporting us carry forward these projects. So let me just give you an example, 1 or 2 examples of what are the kind of projects that we are working on and how we are scaling it up. So one of the pain areas in automobile industry is, demand forecasting and supply planning. Demand keeps fluctuating, and this is where we found that AI could be of great help. And so we actually applied here. So AI powered supply chain actually can enhance the accuracy of demand forecasting and as well as supply planning. AI powered supply chain could eventually achieve a fully automated, self-adjusting decision-making systems, which can accurately predict demand spikes and adjust the routes and volumes of material flow automatically. It not only focuses on performance in a given setting, but also is able to flexibly adapt to changes in the product mix or the distribution network due to unforeseen events. So what we have done is we have actually created a unified sales and operation planning platform using tools like Anaplan and RCCP, and people can use different tools, and they collaborate in a manner that demand forecasting gives different scenarios, and this flows to the suppliers, and they commit back on what is possible by them from their capacity point of view, and therefore what could be a physical plan and what could be and how are we gearing up for the rolling plan with respect to future months. And this is something which is really helping out. It is, the whole plan is transparent, visible to the entire ecosystem. And I was also reading a McKinsey report which tells us that overall inventory levels could actually be reduced by up to 50% if you're able to do it well. And we have made some progress. We have not yet reached 50%, but we are reaching quite close to it. So this is one area. The other area that we have actually used is in the area of inspection. For example, there are cabin rooftop. Now it's difficult to reach that area, but if we are able to use a camera properly, if you are able to have images which are acceptable and images which are not acceptable, and there is enough in that AI to understand what is right, what is wrong, you're able to do that, and this becomes very fast, quick, and also it is able to give feedback if there is an error on where is this error creeping from, and that station gets an alert. And therefore this tying up, one is being able to detect, and the other is being able to trigger the stations where things might have gone wrong. So this is helping quite a lot. Similarly, on cost, one area that we have taken is, paint shop, for example, is one area which is a high utility cost. So we have kind of mapped on what is the right kind of utility consumption, for example, or chemical consumptions for a given level of production, for a given kind of model mix, and therefore you have an hourly performance report on how are you performing with respect to the ideal consumptions that you have on these utilities. So if there is any variation, you will come to know of it online, and almost immediately, and therefore you can actually effect corrective actions. And this also enabled us really cut down the costs. So for example, if you have done it in one plant, we can really go across to the other plant and try it out and scale it up. So these are some of the things that we're doing. And Sridhar, coming back to you, I think this is something which can be used for scaling up, in my view, that you identify your pain areas. You don't do it just for the fancy, or you want to create a boutique of AI or ML. What you really do is you solve real life business problems. You pick up an area, learn, you deploy your own people who really understand both sides the phygital aspect which somebody talked about, and then create success stories and spread it out. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Gandhe, very quickly, I know we are almost on top of the hour, but very quick thoughts from you as well.
Yeah. Very quickly coming back to questions, either what you said that how do we look for next 4-5 years, and are we changing anything? In my opinion, see, the MI and AI is going to be reality. It's not that something which will not be having. So in manufacturing, it is going to be there. Each one will be implementing it in a different way based on the need. What way we look at it is this will give a two level of issues. First is when you are going to make a new plant, I think it's very easy. New line when you make it very easy that you look for most available technologies and go for the best possible plant. But challenge is for the existing plant. How do you transit, and which is your main, the main business. So there you have to go need based and go step by step. And I already explained you that how we have divided in our area. And as Mr. Lal also said, you have to decide your pain area and go about it. So most of the time when you do this, as I said, our theme is empowerment. The decision making has to be done with, online. So it has, you have to have the involvement of the people. Technology is there, but finally it is to be used by the people. And so the design of that technology for your problem solution has to be done with the involvement of all the stakeholders, and that needs to be done very carefully. When we next, after 4 or 5 years, it should not happen that you have implemented technology but you don't get advantages. So this has to be done very carefully. To get that end product, one should never forget that, because every time if you think of automatic kar diya to ho gaya, so it's not so. So we have to look for an end result and what we are looking for. Second is I look forward. I always sensitize my team towards this. The manufacturing industry is so far, we are very much matured in various kind of systems to, the arrest various levels of inefficiencies. So every company have the quality management system. Now this type of technology coming into this, it will throw a challenge of redesigning your quality management systems, because the alertness of human being is going to be taken over by the computers, and it has a different kind of challenge. I can't explain you in this short time, but down the level, each organization have to think that how his team's psyche is going to change by adapting to the AI, and where they have to safeguard. So conventional quality management systems will not work. You also have to start designing your new quality management system along with the adoption of AI. And in my opinion, this is going to be very important steps, because the new technology also can sometimes bring the new problems. So, and the problems with the automation is that when you realize there is a problem, already the amount of damage is big. So fine. So these are the quality management systems. One has to be very careful. That's what quickly I can comment on what 4 or 5 years. One is it is going to be sure, and benefits depend on how you implemented it. It will make a difference.
Thank you so much. I think that we've run out of time, so I'm not going to be able to take views from everyone. But I think that extremely insightful session. A lot of key points, both in terms of what's really happening today in this space, but more importantly, what can happen tomorrow, what's the potential, and what needs to be done to derive that potential. I think that for me, the key takeaways were that, it has always been there. AI and ML have been there, but that they have now taken life of their own. They've become more mature as technologies, and that gives us a unique opportunity to leverage them for almost all aspects of manufacturing sector. And it's not limited only to the manufacturing shop floor, but the entire value chain can benefit and benefit significantly if you are able to adopt AI and ML technologies. It's not that it's not already done. There are many organizations which have already done it at some level. Some of them have become more mature than others in adopting some of these technologies. But I think that the one of the things that we heard is, how do we scale it up? How do we make sure that we are being cautious, we are able to understand what these technologies can do for us, and then make sure that we put in place the right set of resources who can help us adopt and scale this. And as we scale this, it's going to be much more beneficial. And finally, it's not a question of whether AI and ML will be the next wave. It's already the next wave. It's just a question of how quickly are we able to adopt and leverage the benefit potential. So thank you so much for all your insights and experiences that you were able to share with us today. I thank all the participants as well for being a part of this very interesting session. And then I request all of you to stay tuned for the next session on disruptions created by AI and ML in the end-to-end supply chain, which will be moderated by my colleague partner, Ishwaran. So may I hand you over to Ishwaran for the next session?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Sridhar. Thank you.
Thank you, Sridhar. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. I think thanks, and I think very interesting session. I was hearing most of it, and very interesting session that we had, and all the perspectives around manufacturing. So before we start this session, and that was more around manufacturing, and now obviously you really look at where we are in the current context. We have a significant, and I think right from our Honorable Prime Minister, I think everybody has spoken about what the impact and implications of supply chain are on India's growth, and therefore our vision for 5 trillion as an economy. Now, if I were to break that down into the 2 or 3 elements, and therefore we have the right esteemed speakers, who are there in the mix for that. What we would cover would be 2 dimensions. First one that we would cover would really be, what are the big shifts? And that is where I would request, as I introduce our speakers, I would request each of them to spend about 5 minutes, really talking about 2-3 things. First one is, what are the big shifts that we are looking at from a supply chain perspective, especially in the post-pandemic era? Really, because the most important dimension being that the aspirations of customers have changed dramatically. So with aspirations of customers changing, I think it's only quite natural that the upstream industry takes advantage, takes cognizance of it and takes advantage of it too. And therefore, I think the role of the government becomes very relevant in this. The second one, and we have been substantially supported by aspects like the PLI, etc. The second one is, given the experience of the diverse experience of the individuals who are there on the table, I've also requested each of our speakers to also provide a perspective of, for those big shifts that they are seeing, what is that they are seeing as reactions from their industry as best practices, or their organizations as best practices, or if you're serving companies, what are you seeing in the marketplace? So therefore, that would possibly be my second big ask. And as we do that, and therefore we'll take about 5 minutes and maybe spend about 30 minutes in this really listening to them. And after we listen to each of them, maybe we'll spend about 20 minutes talking about this entire dimension. I know some of us have to go a little bit early. Dr. Murthy has been summoned by the minister, and therefore I think we have a exigency for him. So what I would do is, I would not introduce all of us in a stretch right now, but I will start with each one of us, by personal introductions. I am a partner at Deloitte. I lead Deloitte's Asia Pacific supply chain and network operations business. My role is to work with the industry in the region, governments in the region, as well as with other stakeholders, and really enhancing supply chain
capabilities and trends to the next level, and therefore comes a lot of what we are now going to discuss by way of digitalization and AI impact on the supply chain. And Dr. Murthy, before I come to you, two quick introductions for you. Senior Director and Group Head R&D in IT, MeetY, Government of India. Dr. Murthy is a Senior Director and Scientist G and Group Coordinator R&D in IT in the Ministry of Electronics, MeetY as we call them, and IT. He is very much responsible for the promotion of R&D in the areas of IT, implementation of Vishwesvaraya PhD fellowship scheme, IT, R&D, Digital India Corporation. So I can go on with a long list. And I think the big advantage that we have, Dr. Murthy, listening to you, is how do you see this entire AI ML in the supply chain from a government perspective? And what does the government see as what the nation can do, and therefore what companies should be looking at, and what policies are you looking at to enable the growth of this in the marketplace? Broadly digital, and possibly your views more specifically on AML, or maybe about 5 minutes of your time before you rush to meet the minister.
Thank you very much, and for accommodating me and then giving me this opportunity. See, the supply chain management is one of the key area for any of the manufacturing sector. When you are talking about the supply chain management, you are talking about the products reaching to the market, as well as doing the market research, as well as the raw materials required for the manufacturing of the product. So you end-to-end supply chain management is one of the key area for any of the manufacturing sector. So in this, if you are talking about these emerging technologies, AI, ML, and then IoT, these play a vital role in giving into key thrust to the supply chain management system in any manufacturing sector. While AI and ML will be providing for the supply chain management of the raw materials and providing the logistics for individual companies. That means AI ML allows you to customize your raw materials quality and estimate the product quality of the yield estimation of the production also manufacturing sector. So this is one of the key areas, and AI ML plays a vital role in yield estimation and the quality estimation before the product is coming out from the raw material itself. And now, secondly, when you are talking about the yield estimation, the quality of the raw materials plays a vital role in getting the quality of the end product in any manufacturing sector. So the customization of AI ML for the respective quality estimation is very important at the initial stages itself. For that, you need to have a lot of data sets. So those data sets getting from your previous experiences and from the organization that you can manage and then do it. Now coming to in the supply chain management, another major technology that is being used, and then people are every second person in the manufacturing sector or a supply chain management person are talking about is the blockchain technology. Blockchain technology provides you a trust, transparency, and then security also. So that is one of the vital thing in the supply chain management. Blockchain are being used. But for the last 5 years, even though the blockchain technology is available for the researchers for the last 10 days or 10 years, but during the last 3 years, it has picked up really well. And in the industry, people are working about what is a blockchain technology and how it can be useful. And as of today, it has only become a buzzword in the various industry for various applications, be it transport, be it logistics, be it the smart contracts, and blockchain technology has become a buzzword. But as of now, we don't have a complete reference implementation for end-to-end for a large-scale systems. Be it, say, for example, supply chain management for the entire country. Say, for example, the drugs or the COVID management, the vaccines and other things. Still, it is in a nascent stage where you can have a large-scale adoption in the country. So what we are doing is we have proposed a national blockchain framework, unified blockchain framework, by collecting various stakeholders, by industry, academia, and government organization. And we are coming out a national strategy paper, which is already given for public consultation. So based on that, we are constructing 2 reference implementation. One is for the smart contracts or the certificate academic qualifications verification blockchain, and supply chain management of the public health department for the drugs and pharmaceuticals in a particular state. or the statewide implementation that we are doing it, so that these two will become a reference implementations, and this unified blockchain framework infrastructure would be created by having nodes across the geographical places of the country. So this will help you in providing, even the government also providing blockchain as a service, blockchain infrastructure as a service to various applications of maybe e-governance applications or the supply chain management for the industry as well. So this is one of the important things that we have taken up. Very soon we'll be having a industry consultants where people who are working in this blockchain technology can also participate in designing the unified blockchain framework for the national purpose. That means, like any other stack, governance stack, India stack for the blockchain that we are trying to build up, and that will be given for the public consumption and public usage. It will be used for various industry and other partners. One of the applications that we have envisaged is supply chain management. So the other important thing is that you have been talking about AI and ML. Just AI and ML may not be sufficient for end-to-end supply chain management. You need to have a clear-cut data analytics and data science for this purpose, and also some of the IoT and RFID tags for identification of various logistics and other purposes, the parcels that are there, and you need to have geotag them or maybe RFID tags which are required, so that you can track the trucks where they are going and how to identify that. The logistics and supply chain management, you can do it very well. So these are some of the technologies that we are closely working with various industry people, and also based on our experience and our collaboration with the industry, that we are trying to promote the industrial usage in adopting these technologies. So that is why we have come out with a national program on AI, which includes for all the emerging technologies, a national program on AI and other emerging technologies have been identified, and now it will be implemented very soon. So in that, one of the important component is how these technologies will be useful for the industry. That is the prime concern of us, and we will be closely working with the industry and as well as the other partners of academia and the R&D labs, national R&D labs, for bringing out a national program on AI. So one of the key centers is industrial competency centers of excellences we are setting up. So to promote the startups or to promote some of the industry adoption, faster adoption of AI and ML technologies by the industry. So these are some of the key things that we are doing from our ministry side. So we are all for it, how to adopt quickly and how to onboard these technologies for these industry people to onboard on these technologies. So that is the key thing. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Any quick questions I can answer? Ishwaran, I think you are offline now. Any quick questions which I can answer? Either from the participants? Hello, anyone from the Deepak?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm just back. I got disconnected.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm just back. Sorry about that. Just one quick question, Dr. Moti, on what you said. How are you really looking at balancing costs with each of this? You spoke about the entire aspect of the multiple interventions and therefore the reference models that we are having, many of them directed at public use. How are you really looking at it? We spoke about, let's say, even for AI/ML to come in, the entire geotagging, tracing, and therefore the analytics, and therefore on top of it, finally the AI/ML layer, which can learn from all this. But how is the cost being aligned to? Are there any thoughts around how we can plan around the cost?
See, the cost of individually, the cost of adopting this technology varies from industry to industry, and then applications. But what I have seen, my personal experience with the industry and with the adoption of these technologies by various people. So when the moment you talk about these emerging technologies, any company who is providing these technologies, the costs are very exorbitant. So some of the small industries, SMEs and other sector are non-IT companies adopting these technologies, understanding these technologies, becoming is a little bit of difficult for them. So in order to support the technology and then help them, what we are doing is we are creating awareness about these technologies. Among these, what these technologies can provide and what cannot provide this. So that is some of the things that we are helping them in doing it. And some of the technologies which are, and some of the training and awareness and all these programs are being conducted by us.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I think those were great, great points. And thanks, Dr. Muthi. I know you were in the middle of some really stressful situations and then you came us. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much for adopting.
Pleasure. You know, if I can turn to Biswajit, Biswajit, you know, you are on
So
the other
anyone
side
wants
of the...
to contact me, you can contact me on bkmurthy at bkm@mit.gov.in. That's my email ID.
Perfect.
So I'll put it in the chat box so you can access it.
Perfect.
And my mobile number as well, I'll put it in the chat box. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, Biswajit, you know, you are on the other side, right? You serve a lot of companies. Biswajit is a partner in automotive industry leader India and South Asia at IBM India, and over 28 years of overall experience. Maybe I stated a couple more. 26 is what he said, and you know, started his career with automotive OEMs and later moved into IBM. Biswajit, you know, you would have seen multiple sides, right? You've been part of the OEM, you know, maybe early days, but you know, the OEMs look at it in a different perspective, and now you serve companies. And to the point that Dr. Murthy started off with, if you can provide a perspective to say, where do you think are the big shifts that you are witnessing, and maybe, you know, dovetail a little bit also into where do you see the adoption of AI/ML, you know, from an overall end-to-end perspective of supply chain. Where do you see those 2-3 big buckets where people are adopting it far more than a couple of others?
Thanks, Isha. Thanks. It's a great question. And as you said, I've seen both the side, but more recently, I've been living with our clients and mostly in the automotive industry. One of the biggest advantage of working with the automotive industry, specifically in India, is they're mature. At the same time, this industry is getting disrupted more than one way. And from that standpoint, the supply chain is always under pressure. And in fact, as we speak, for last couple of months, in fact, the automotive industry globally is facing a huge challenge. And the challenge is not on the demand side, but on the supply chain side. And something which is a fallout of the whole pandemic situation, what's going through right now. But see, having said that, see, it has kind of opened up a lot of questions in terms of the basic framework on which the supply chain operations or the processes have been running so far. We never really looked at the structural risk or the flexibility or the resiliency of the supply chain in that light really so far, because we never needed to. Especially if you look at from an Indian standpoint, it was a growing economy, and if I talk about the automotive industry overall, which includes the component manufacturers as well as the front end side of it, or the associated industries like the logistics, etc., they were growing pretty fast, growing at a double digit in terms of CAGR. Now, the other thing which was also became very, very critical is the global visibility or the insights of the supply chain was there, but it was not resilient enough. So whenever see, in Indian economy was to a great extent, we never really had the financial shock of 2008 or even the earlier ones. We are a bit more inward in that sense. But this is the time when we really got to kind of see a lot of challenges as far as the whole overall structure of the supply chain is concerned. And from that standpoint, the whole the visibility of the supply chain become very, very critical. And when I say visibility, it's not the visibility of what's happening now, the visibility of what's going to happen in future. And that's where the technology really come in, and specifically from a standpoint of the AI ML, which is a part of our discussion. The other thing which is also was happening in this industry as well as most of the industries is every organization was trying hard to align to the changing customer needs. In some industries, it was slightly more advanced. In some of the industries, it was going a bit slow. But that was a direction which was going through. So from that, I mean, if you put all of them together, this made each of these organizations to look at their processes very, very carefully, so that they're able to address each of these problems. And that's where the whole technology comes in. And I do agree with Dr. Murthy. It is not just one technology, which is AI ML. That's one part of it. I mean, probably we need to look at the complete stack of technology, whether it's an IoT, which probably generates part of the data, which needs to kind of go in. We need to look at the cloud, which probably will process a lot of this technology solutions. We need to look at the APIs, especially from a supply chain standpoint, where we need to really look at, or there's a complete ecosystem needs to work together. We definitely need to look at the blockchain, which he talked a lot about it. I'm very enthusiastic about the whole India stack as far as the blockchain is concerned. Then and once you talk about data, the whole the cyber security becomes once again a very, very important topic. So all these 5-6 different technologies needs to be looked together when you talk about digitization of the technology in supply chain area. Now, coming to your second point, how we see the organization is kind of taking the step over here. See, a couple of areas which needs to be looked at now, which is one is the market demand and execution, which is essentially what we call is a demand sensing. And that's an area. In fact, in the last session, I joined a bit early. I mean, I could hear part of the last session. I was hearing the way Tata Motor is really trying to get into that space of demand sensing and leveraging the AI, ML, and various other technology components. And so that's an area which I'm seeing most of the organizations are trying to get in first. The second area, which is the benefit which you get out of it, is essentially how do you optimize the overall inventory and reduce the cost. And that's something which fits into each other in a way, in terms of this is how the business case works for the investment, what you need to do on. As you move from this state, some of the organizations, especially if you look at a few of the FMCG organizations, they have moved into the next level, where they're looking at how they really look at the complete network and look at how they can really optimize the overall logistics operations. And then the next stage probably, and along with that, you can look at, I mean, organizations are looking at how do I leverage the AI ML or other technologies in terms of reducing my cost of acquisition, in terms of cost of procurement, cost of the overall SG&A part of it. Once you move into the slightly more mature stage, and that's something which we have been seeing at a more advanced, I mean, technologically advanced organizations, is getting into a complete a kind of a supply chain control tower, where you are able to visualize the overall organization in one control tower, and leveraging the technology, you are able to do a prediction and the effect on each of the business scenarios. So in a way, you are able to simulate a what if for an overall organization. That's the next stage, and as you move into that stage, you also bring in your complete ecosystem. I mean, if I say from an automotive industry standpoint, I mean, I can do it for my own organization, but I need to also look at it for my tier 1 and the tier 2s, and also my dealerships, if I am able to bring in the complete ecosystem and get that visibility and get those scenario building, and that's where I look at, that's the direction which is probably going in. It will take some time for most of the organization, but that's clearly I see is the direction on which most of the people are thinking.
I think great point. So quick one from me before I move on. So see what you said, migrating from really looking at sensing what was mentioned earlier to migrating to a control tower where we can do scenario analysis. I think the underlying fact for an AI/ML journey would obviously be the data and therefore the data sets from which the machine learns by itself. How have you seen that maturity going? Is that the differentiator between companies for adoption? Because you mentioned consumer business adopting it a little bit more than maybe other entities, etc. Is it more around the availability and quality of data, or is it more around essentially the trust and faith in what an AI/ML can do to the company?
See, I think it's a later part is more important. See, there is you'll never have 100% data. It's impossible. Okay, and you need to start. And my AI/ML journey is something which matures over the time. I mean, it learns of its own and gets matured. So there's never a perfect time to start. So what's critical essentially is that understanding or think the art of possibilities and making it real. That's the overall maturity which is very critical for the organization. Little bit top down, but at the same time, an overall organization is to move together as it needs to go into that journey.
Wonderful, great points. I think what you said at the end, saying fair bit of top down. I think you made it little, but I think fair bit of top down, and I think obviously never late to start any. Because you just have to get started somewhere, and then the data would obviously be collected and churned and harmonized the way we would want it to be. Perfect. Thanks, Mr. I'll on the other side, I'll call upon Arvind, Dr. Arvind Tilak. Started his career in the Indian Army and served the Indian Army for a few years before seeking voluntary release, and he was commissioned in the Regiment of Artillery. After bagging Brigade of Guards medal in pre-commissioning training. So glad to have you, and you're now managing two companies, Ascent Intellimation Private Limited and AIPL as he calls it, and also AIPL Systems Private Limited, which is engaged in training and consultancy for IIoT. So Dr. Arvind, you're coming from on the side where there's a lot of interventions from the government, which we heard from Dr. Moti. Biswajit spoke about what he sees in the eyes of a consultant as what he advises clients around, and you're here with the ecosystem that is going to enable companies. So as part of that, what have you seen in the last? One is obviously the manufacturing dimensions of it and what IT and IoT sort of address. But really, in the larger space of the supply chain, what have you seen? Are there any big trends that you've seen, especially in the last 18 months to a year? And second is, obviously, what are that you see as the big motivations for customers?
Yeah. So thanks, Sivran, and thanks CII for this opportunity. So essentially, I'm coming from a place where supply chain is an add-on to the manufacturing processes. So I'm looking at the supply chain more from the manufacturing decision perspective rather than supply chain by itself, because that's an adjunct for what we do. But essentially, what we have seen is that in whichever areas the manufacturing companies are working now, whether from supply chain to warehouses to HR resources and everything, everybody is now talking of the real time and the ability of an IoT system or an IIoT system to remain connected to get the data and essentially providing real-time analytics and output, again, driven by AI, ML, various other technologies, is something that's picking up big time. And that's what we're seeing. So essentially, as a solution, what we do is we provide this real-time connectivity to the manufacturing setup and including to the enterprise system, which connect to the supply chain like an ERP or a WMS or a, whatever system. and then convert all this in an aggregated manner to a real-time data and analytics. So dashboarding and analytics is the key function that we provide and enable people to, and this enhances the whole process. So from the supply chain perspective or manufacturing perspective, the big change we have seen, especially in the pandemic period and the post-pandemic, if I can still use that word, in the post-pandemic period, is that people are saying that let's try and make systems autonomous as much as possible, as much system driven as possible, moving away from people. And so the whole visibility, dependability and predictability are the three major asks by the customer, and this is happening big time. So the systems that we implement have to be integrated, aggregated, and support decisions. I won't go into these details. Maybe we can subsequently share this presentation. But essentially, the smart manufacturing systems are moving beyond just the shop floor itself. I mean, yesterday I was in a plant where the parts are getting manufactured in Bangalore. They are brought here in Pune. They are processed and then assembled and supplied to a automotive company. An automotive company wants this company to be responsible for the entire just-in-time supplies, reliability of the product that is given, and traceability. So all this happens with the data coming right from the tier 2 to tier 1 and to the automotive company. So supply chain and the manufacturing systems are really getting integrated in this sense. And the aggregation is also happening simply because there are a lot of dependencies. So if this doesn't happen, what happens if the, just now, if you have seen the NH4 was closed because there were floods in Kolhapur region, what happens on the impact on the supply chain and what it impacts? Manufacturing schedules have to be adjusted and everything else. So there's a lot of things, and people are saying, let's not do it by people. That's what they have been doing. So can AI ML tools come into picture, do all this aggregation and optimization and everything in between, and deliver the result? End of the day, every manufacturing company is looking at producing more at less cost and highest quality. That's the thing. And everything has to be proven by data today, and that's what a system is supposed to do. So this is what at a high level we are seeing, but I'm open for any question that you may have.
But I think what you said makes more sense.
Yeah.
I think what you said makes sense, because I think just like what I think the other two speakers also said, I think today the need to look at risk in the supply chain and therefore the resilience is far higher than possibly any time in the past.
True.
And that is possibly where you're saying people want to look at closer to real time. And the second thing that I think is becoming very common in our interactions, or the first three interactions, is it's a larger ecosystem at play right now. It's just not about the company itself or the four walls. So it's not about understanding the performance of a particular equipment or a particular facility, but also to look at how supplies are oriented and can I dynamically change plans. And that is where AI/ML tools come in very handy as you speak. And I think one of the big cases, I think, of AI/ML, I think, which has also been promulgated, has been around the availability of hospital beds and therefore how they can make real-time decisions for patients in, which was there in vogue at the COVID time. So thank you so much. I think Arvind, it was great hearing those 2-3 big dimensions. I think I'll call Mansingh, Director and Chief Executive Officer of Gen X Logistics. Mansingh, so you come in now with I think a lot of pressure on you right now, as I see it on AI/ML, because everybody has been talking about scenario planning and really looking at real-time decision making. And the last thing that I tend to do, at least individually, is to complain about how the delivery didn't happen on time. So I think with all these in perspective, I think Mansingh, may be good to hear from you as to how you have seen the shifts in logistics. This is a very important area, and we have not spoken about this so far. Maybe in 5 minutes, the big shifts that you have seen in the industry itself in the last couple of years. And I think there's been a lot of trends around marketplace models, etc., and therefore a lot of technology into the marketplace. So maybe a quick, few minutes on that, and then maybe I'll get back to you with one nuanced question that we may all have.
Thank you very much, Ishwar. I'll simply, put it in 3 sentences. Earlier, people used to dance with people's instruction. So there was somebody who's instructing and people were moving around. Then people started people and instruments and equipment started dancing with people's instruction. So not only the people were dancing, but equipment and instrument were also dancing because there was somebody who's instructing them, right? I see a complete, 180-degree shift in that. There'll be a time, and there is already a time when people and instrument are dancing with people and instrument instructing. And that's how I see this complete shift. For organizations, yes, there are different organizations, different stages, whether it is at data capturing or responsiveness or interconnectedness. But I largely see it, as a, what do you call, latency of information. This is where the supply chain is moving, around. People's decisions are based on that only. It's not uniform at the moment. If you look at it at the ground level, earlier warehouses and plants, as I said, warehouses and plants, people were moving and everything was stationary. Now people are, trying to or tending to be stationary, and everything else will be moving, including the inventory itself. So if there is a pallet which is there at a wrong place, it should automatically alert the system, and probably robo will come and, correct the pallet at its right place. That's exactly what, it is likely to be. But that's an island of information. Now, unless or until this information collected at the base level is interconnected to be able to create into a meaningful story, the story will end there itself. So, whether it is about deliveries, whether it is about picking, whether it is about inventory levels, whether it is about, different aspects, it's all about, how this information is getting captured, how it is getting relayed, how it is getting interpreted, how it is getting extrapolated in terms of sense making, and how the decision is happening. If you talk about changes within the supply chain, there are a lot of them in pockets. So, for example, earlier, everything used to happen, all the information used to be captured through phone. POD information or delivery information used to be captured in phone and put it, somewhere. Now it is moved, from phone, it is moved to, say barcode scanning. From barcode scanning, it is moved to RF scanning. From there, it is moved to GPRS, and this is how it has been evolving, right? And not only the delivery side, but even the warehousing side and, demand planning side. So there was times when people used to spend hours and hours, man hours worth of, time in terms of demand planning. But, currently with the availability of information and with the availability of algorithm, these demand planning scenarios can be put into place, and the, latency of information, because see, decision making used to happen, with a lot of, lag. So demand planning used to happen monthly. From monthly it moved to weekly. From weekly it moved to daily. Can it move into hourly and minutes and seconds and nanoseconds? That's exactly how I look at, it is working as a ground level for supply chain, from all the aspects. Ishwar, over to you.
So just coming back on that, and quick question. Then your dancing analogy was perfect. As to who was dancing first and who danced later. But just by way of the entire deployment model, and one of the things that we have been struggling with in India is to really enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of logistics. You mentioned a couple of cases where there has been, let's say you said, the pallet is in the wrong place, you'll have to get it, etc. All of these are efficiency driven exercises. But at a larger level, are there big areas that AI/ML can contribute to enhance the efficiency of the logistics ecosystem itself, other than obviously, like what you said, everything is becoming variable right now, including the footprint of where the inventory is stored and how much of inventory itself? Are there a couple of areas that AI and ML can, and really, or I'll use them together, AI and ML can come together and really enhance the effectiveness of a logistics ecosystem in India, which can bring down my cost per ton kilometer?
Yes, so as of now, most of the, for example, take an example of network planning for an organization. As of now, it's absolutely manual driven. So people or organizations would have hundreds of fulfillment centers across the country. Why are they there? What is the logic? Is there any science which is gone into it? And what is the flexibility which is worked around it? Because it has a huge cost associated with it.
right? That's at an organization level. Similarly, for example, during COVID, people were struggling to find cold storage places across the country. Now, do we have some visibility in terms of what are the facilities available, where can we store, and what level of ambient controls do we have in those facilities? That was a kind of struggle that we've had. There is no information available. So working through the AI and ML technologies, right, we can always create this kind of an ecosystem, bring the cost down. Why do we need to have hundreds of fulfillment center across the country if my customers delivery can happen over 24 hours by putting at 30 centers? Why I need 100? So that's something that that AI and ML technologies where yeah, they can bring it.
Wonderful. No, absolutely. I think your points are, I think, very, very relevant. I think things like network optimization, which has a big impact on the cost to serve for companies, or for that matter, some of the critical assets that people are looking at, like cold chain ecosystems, which are there. I think those two could be, as relevant starting points for people to think about. And the whole intent, what you're saying is that, let them go to the areas where complete manual interventions and where real-time decision making. So I think coming back on what all of you are discussing, I think there are 2-3 things which are coming out. One is all around real time. The second one is really a scenario planning for decision making. And the third thing which is coming out is, I think, a little bit later, the maturity into a blockchain in whatever form and shape that we are looking at. So I think there are some common themes. Thanks, Singh, for thoughts. And I'll call upon Tarun Mishra. Tarun is CEO of Coaxis and an alumni of IIT Bombay, and he's also the co-founder of Coaxis. It's a company which is established itself as an organization which plays in the industrial IoT space. So Tarun, glad to have your thoughts, and very specifically what I want you to maybe touch upon is, I think Arvind spoke a bit about the smart manufacturing and the real-time part of it. If you can really talk about how are organizations really adopting the journey, and what are those journeys that they are taking? Is it a big bang that they are looking at? Is there incremental journeys of proofs of concepts and reference models, etc.? If you can just give us some views around that, that will be fantastic.
Thanks, student. You can hear me, right?
Absolutely, we can.
Perfect. So thanks. My pleasure to be here. However, I don't know how many participants are there, to be honest. But let me kind of share our views and thought. It's a very relevant topic for a country like us in a time like this. So I will answer to the question which you have pointed for me. These are the one thing. Let me start that organizations wherein the senior management has the ability or the interest to co-create and reimagine their business model are the one who are really driving for AI ML kind of thing in the manufacturing sector. And they are the one who are succeeding. They are the one who are taking the early advantage by doing it, which means they have understood the power of AI and ML, and they have also understood well their own business model. That is more important. A lot of us understand AI ML, but a lot of us do not understand what we do on day-to-day basis. The idea is that what we do and how these new tool and technique and methods are really further simplifying or further redefining or creating differentiation is the key. So as if I have to come about adoption in manufacturing, we have in last 24 months, I will not talk about before that because it was too early, because we started in 2009 when world was sleeping, to be honest. So we have seen the awakening of the world on IoT and industrial IoT. So in last 24 months, we are seeing that there are companies who are spending around $1 million on Covax's system every year, right? Which means their spending is possibly equivalent to what they have today on Big Bang ERP rollout as of today.
Okay.
Now, what is happening is, but of course, there are only few, as I must tell you, there are only few such organizations. And all these organizations, they understand two things. What application they need to apply, that where do they apply such kind of product and AI ML and technologies, and B, how do we adopt well? So your question of adoption is extremely important, that unless the operator on the shop floor, who possibly is an illiterate guy, or who has not done his even primary schooling well, has to use this AI and ML. So the adoption in manufacturing about such kind of technology is something which the supplier, if onus is on supplier, that what kind of product they build so that even an illiterate person or semi-literate person can use it. And that can happen only, as I said, two words, co-creation and reimagination between supplier and the customer. In 2021, the onus is more on the supplier, and we have to take the responsibility.
Perfect. I think good points. I think what you mentioned very relevant. I think the onus has changed as we are looking at the new paradigm. And the second is, I think the Big Bang model is obviously one where I think one dimension that would become very relevant, Tarun, would obviously be how are we really looking at change and people management. I think that is possibly one big area in what you said. Although you talked about the average employee can adopt it, I think there is some change management which may also be required as you think about this, because people have to be used to the new way of. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Now,
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, sorry, you're saying something.
Yeah, just I will finish my last thought on 30 seconds on it. So, the change management should not be seen as a parallel discipline or a classic conventional management strategy. I tell you, Covaxis ourselves, we are doing change management in organizations, and how we do is very 30 seconds, and we'll complete it. So once we apply this system, let's say a largest masala manufacturer in India, we implemented our system to them, right? We didn't have to do the big bang chain management and the entire thing. We picked up their key top 3 problem. I said, I don't want your
You're breaking up. Maybe your connection is weak.
An employee, I don't want to tell you this problem. We identified a group of 2 to 3, 4 people pertaining to those problem statements, and then we run the whole improvement through our product.
Perfect.
And AI and ML.
Thanks.
And in part of the process, all those change agent.
Thanks, Tarun. I think that was perfect. Perfect. Thanks you so much. I think I know we've not spoken to Ajay so far. So Ajay, thank you so much for joining us. And I think you're sort of coming in because it sort of makes sense to come at the end. You are the co-founder of Fleetex, and Fleetex is an IoT-driven full-stack freight automation platform. So we spoke about a lot of things around the scenario planning. We spoke about real-time decisions. Mansingh spoke about how we can really apply AML in logistics, and really now you're talking about freight automation platform. So Ajay, two things I wanted to ask you. One is really in this entire journey of looking at a full stack freight automation platform that you would have developed and deployed, what did you see as the big drivers for adoption? That is one that I wanted to ask you. And how has it really changed course for companies? And that would be a good insight for everybody to pick up. And therefore, go back to those functional areas and say, how do you need to interlink with freight operations too? Because then you get the supply in place, you have your manufacturing, you have your real-time analysis, and therefore demand sensing, as Biswajit said, and then you're stacked up for the entire platform. So I have a few minutes from you on these two aspects. Abhay, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Thanks, Ishwar. And thanks,
Yes,
CII, for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, I was listening to everyone, and everybody has shared some good point like control tower, data. So, like our topic we are discussing today is like applying AI/ML in end-to-end supply chain management. But I want to take a step back because I'm like daily I meet some of the customers from shipper side or a fleet owner side. What happens if you want to apply AI ML for any application or in any industry, you need lot of data. And currently, if I will say tell you that data that less than 10% vehicles are on technology or they are using any technology or so first we need to these guys are using calls or like manually pen or paper or trying to like use WhatsApp to manage their day-to-day operation. So first we need to push these guys to digitize their operations. And what one thing is now good, like because of COVID, everybody like maybe shipper or a fleet owner, they all realize that it's very difficult for them to manage their operation remotely because they were using people for everything. Like if they want to check where is my vehicle, they will call a driver and then they will ask him and they will update in the Excel that okay, this is the location our vehicle is right now. So now they all realize in COVID lockdown that they cannot manage their control tower by using people. They have to use some kind of a technology. And so now this COVID wave is pushing these guys to use the technology. And we also need to push from our solutions and we need to help these guys in becoming profitable because the companies which are using technology and the companies which are not using technology, those companies which were using technology are now more sustainable and growing faster than the companies which were only using pen and paper or people for managing their day-to-day operations. And a company like us, Fleetex, what we do, we give them these IoT sensors, or we try to digitize their day-to-day operations so that they can take advantage of our technology and they can manage their or automate their day-to-day operations by using our proprietary technologies. Such as now, they can know in real time if their vehicle is running delayed, or they can know about like if the vehicle is deviating from particular route, or they can like they can know if some risky area where vehicle has stopped, so they can know in real time the risky deliveries and they can take action in real time.
So Abhay, from what you're saying, I think 2-3 things, right? First of all, you're saying that while, and that was possibly my next question to you, and maybe you know the others to pitch into. One of the big disablers for implementation of many of these solutions has been the arbitrage between the having someone to work on it as physical manpower vis-a-vis using technology for many decision making, especially on some of the activities like logistics that you said. But what you're now saying is that with the experience from the pandemic, companies are realizing that there is a high degree of variability on the human side and therefore adopting technology. How are they looking at, and you said that some companies who are using the technology are growing faster than some of the others. So what's enabling that drive? Forget whether it is growth or whether it is profits. What is enabling that in your view, as you see from your customers? What did you really see in the overall?
So I will tell you, like, so before COVID, we used to talk with these shippers. We used to go to them and ask them to, you can set up your control tower. Now these guys are hiring chief digital officers. Everybody has a number one priority to hire chief digital officer and set up these control towers. And they are calling us. Now we are getting leads online from these customers, big shippers of India are calling and they are trying to set up, they are trying to ask their fleet owners to install these devices so that they can track complete delivery, because now they don't have manpower in the plants. or in their control tower who can do these tasks for them manually. They need something autonomous which can do all the operations. Like they need manless plant movement of their vehicles, but they cannot do without applying technology, IoT, RFID sensors. So now these guys have clear mandate from their management that you need to hire a guy who can make sure and like automate all their critical operations currently.
Perfect. So I think I think we are on time, but I think from what I heard from the six of you, there are about 3 or 4 things that I think the audience can take away. The first one is fundamentally the fact is that there is a big driver towards making it real time. So to that extent, I think all what you would want to address together with that, be it scenario planning, be it looking at efficiency enhancements, all that is really shifting towards the need to be real time cognizant and therefore real time reactive. That's possibly one that I'm getting. The second that I'm getting is that while we are looking at all these things, there is obviously an underlying data which is always a challenge in a country like us, but there is no bad time to start. And I think every time is a good time to start. So to that extent, I think adoption of these technologies are becoming much more prevalent, and therefore also not a bad time to start. That's possibly the second that I'm getting. The third and the most important thing is that I think across the value chain, I think we saw examples, be it in terms of demand sensing that Vishwadit you started with, or in terms of, smart factories that both Tarun and, Arvind you spoke about, or in terms of logistics that Mansingh talked about, or for that matter, the blockchain from a government reference perspective that Dr. Murthy spoke. And finally, what you had, Abhay, way of saying that there is the platform model that even shippers and others are looking at. So I think the entire end to end, I think there are enough cases for us to start thinking about AIML. And to that end, I think we are not be the first in the race when we start thinking about this. I think there is enough and more activity which is on. And finally, I think the last part that I took away is that classic question that we always have, whether there is a human arbitrage of cost that will always play up against IT and IoT. I think that seems to be a little bit on the back burner right now, given all the disruptions that I've had. So maybe the disruptions have taught us a lesson that there is some degree of variability of human intervention. And to that extent, therefore, the entire digital journey, and with that, AML becomes very relevant. So, I want to thank all the speakers for coming in. I got some really good points from all of you, and therefore, I think the audience would have benefited from all your views. And if there are any things that I missed out, maybe we have another 30 seconds between all of us. So maybe if there is a quick word that any of you would want to have, happy to pick that up. But otherwise, it's been a pleasure listening to all of you, and I'm sure to the audience too. And I'm really happy that we had a great session for an hour.
Ishwar, I just want to add, to this last event. On the functional side of supply chain, as the last panelist also discussed, the digitization level of digitization is very, very abysmally low. And people are still at the level of, data capturing. They've not moved beyond that. So people who are actually thinking about AI and ML, the people who would want to lead this change, or who already face some kind of issues, owing to various, the challenges which has, come up recently, including the COVID. But the largest set of companies, they still have this, mindset that, okay, if people can do it, why deploying, some base technology itself? And that's a problem. But probably, there are people, after the leaders, there'll be many adopters, who will see the change, and they will get, they will have to change accordingly.
Wonderful. Well said. Well said. So thanks, Mansingh. Thanks for that. And I want to thank Tarun, Arvind, Abhay, Vishwajit, and Dr. Murthy too. Thank you all of you for a great session, and look forward to connecting offline with all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. I'll close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.